towards Eddard. You put Brandon the Builder to shame, Lord Stark. Building far more than he ever did and in far less time too. As the new lords found their seats, the chatter and laughter resumed at Gregor Forrester's jape. The newly appointed lords stared with excitement at the deeds of lordship. I think not, Lord Forrester. Though, there is more I should say. Only 3 moons ago, I had given orders for the first keep of Winterfell to be cleared of rubble and to be used once again. And whilst workers were clearing rubble, they had discovered an ancient chamber. There are historians down there right now, learning what secrets they can and who built it and why. But, there was a very pleasant surprise discovered. 120 ingots of pure Valyrian steel. Again there was a stunned silence in the hall before it was broken by one lord. Is this some jape, Ned? Asked Willam Dustin. It most certainly isn't, Lord Dustin. Sir Roderick. Roderick opened the doors to the hall and followed behind him were over 20 servants, each carrying the weapons of Valyrian steel that Eddard had been keeping hidden in his solar. This is my gift to you, my lords. For these last few years have been trying for us all. The North has loved and lost many. There is still much to be done for the future of the North. More to make the North stronger than it ever has been, said Eddard. Each Valyrian steel weapon was placed at the high table for all to see them. Are the restoration works at Moat Cailin been completed, Lord Stark? Asked Roose Bolton. Aye, it has, my lord. As has Wolf's Den and Rider Hall on the shores of the Rills. And as for the Cailin Canal, the builders assure me that it will be complete 1 year from now. And what of these Valyrian roads, Ned? Asked Ricard Karstark. Half of the King's Road is complete and the foundations are laid for the rest of the King's Road. And soon, work can begin on the foundations of roads from the King's Road to connect all holdings in the north, my lord. But, my lords and ladies, I have spoken aplenty. For now, let us celebrate with how far we have gone and how much we have all achieved in these last few years with food and drink. And these Valyrian steel weapons are my gift to you, he announced before Veon Poole and a few other servants began handing out the weapons to the chosen lords. Some, Eddard knew, were better suited to different weapons than others. For example, most lords were gifted longswords or bastard swords. The Dustins and the Sawins were gifted battle axes, as they were on their sigils. Roose Bolton nodded with approval at his new longsword, but looked with interest at a dagger, as though imagining what he could do with a Valyrian steel dagger. And the great Jon Umber was awarded the largest great sword of them all, longer than ice by a foot and wider by half an inch. And it was the great Jon whom led the cheers for Eddard for the Valyrian steel weapons. Here's to you, Ned. And to the grand and glorious future of the North which you shall be leading us on, he bellowed out as he raised his 7-foot-long great sword in the air before sheathing it and downing not 1, but 2, full tankards of ale and then challenging Ricard Karstark to arm wrestling. Ash leaned in towards Eddard just as the last of the selected weapons had been awarded. Will we not tell them of the plans for Northern independence, Ned? She asked. No, my love. Not yet. Once all is finished in strengthening the North, then I will make my plans with them. And then I will contact the Company of the Rose. The Company of the Rose? Who are they? She asked. A sellsword company in Essos. They are made up of men of Northern descent, Northerners going to make a fortune or Northerners who refused to submit to Targaryen rule. Rumor is that they are led by an Umber right now. But, long ago when Torrhen Stark bent the knee, their ancestors had made a sacred oath to the old gods that they will not return to the north unless the shackles of Targaryen rule are broken. Interlude 2. Gregor Forrester, Peter Gantzler, BBC 2, The Last Kingdom, Series 1, Earl Ragnar. A sword of Valyrian steel. Ah, this'll be a fine heirloom of House Forrester for little Roderick to inherit one day. And now, at least those fucking Whitehill twats have their own sword now to stop trying to paw at ours. The ride home to Ironrath with Elissa felt good. Whilst in Winterfell, he had seen how the King's Road leading to Winterfell was widened by thrice as much to prepare it for the construction of the Valyrian roads. Makes you think what it will be like when Valyrian roads are built all around the north to connect to Winterfell and when the Cailin Canal is complete, Elissa had said. Aye. And it will certainly make trade easier for selling our ironwood around the north and to Essos, said Gregor. The White Hills will still be envious towards us on that account, Elissa pointed out. My love, have they ever not needed a reason to hate us? Gregor wondered. No. But, I would hope that Ned Stark would help heal relations between us, before it turns into a war, she said. Ah, the White Hills don't have the stomach for war with us. They'll resort to base thievery or get someone else to do it for them, Gregor japed as he began to see the Tower of Ironrath from the distance. It'll be good to be back home and to enjoy the freedom of riding around Wolfswood and feel the gods watching me as I feel the thrill of riding in their most sacred wood. And to see my little ones and show Roderick the sword that he will one day inherit. Winterspan is an important artifact of House Forrester's history, so it won't be gotten rid of so meekly. It certainly won't be gifted to those fucking White Hills. Whilst Gregor was glad to be back home, he was still unused to the role of Lord of Ironrath. For he had lost his father during the rebellion, after an infected arrow wound from the Battle of the Bells had killed him. Gregor smiled when the gates opened for him and he beamed at seeing the sword and weirwood tree sigil banners of House Forrester hanging from the walls. My lord. My lady. Welcome back. Was all well at Winterfell? Asked Sir Malcolm Bramfield, Gregor's good brother. During the rebellion, House Bramfield of Barleyhold in the Crown Lands was at the forefront of the fighting in service to the Targaryens. But Lord Aelix Bramfield was killed in the fighting, along with two of Malcolm and Elissa's brothers. In spite of what they had sacrificed for in the name of the Iron Throne and House Targaryen, their loyalty was repaid with treachery when fellow houses of the Crown Lands smelled weakness at the news of a now weakened and lordless House Bramfield. They plotted together to try and to steal their lands and the castle of Barleyhold. Gregor, newly made Lord of Ironrath after the death of his father, vowed to help House Bramfield when he came upon Elissa on the march for home. Gregor led the army of Ironrath, 1,500 men, to join with Sir Malcolm and his last remaining brother, Sir Georgie, and their small token force of 100. In a fierce battle against their rivals whom possessed an army of 2,000, the Forresters and Bramfields emerged victorious. Sir Georgie was named Lord of Bramfield and Sir Malcolm decided to travel with Elissa after she had married Gregor. Being a southerner, obviously Gregor knew that she was unused to the north. Regardless, he admired her ferocity and tenacity in her capacity as Lady of Ironrath and being at his side through the first few years after the rebellion. She had become used to the climate of Ironrath, she had begun to worship the old gods, after abandoning the Seven after they had abandoned her father and brothers. They had 3 children together, 2 sons Roderick and Asher and a daughter Myra. All was well, Malcolm. And beneficial. For House Forrester is now in possession of a sword of Valyrian steel, said Gregor as he climbed down from his horse. Truly. Valyrian steel? Asked Malcolm, eyes widened at his good brother's reply. To clarify, Gregor drew said sword from his horse's saddle scabbard and showed it to Malcolm. Magnificent. Truly magnificent, said Malcolm as he admired the sword and reaching out to stroke the blade. Careful now, my friend. I've already cut my hand 3 times just from stroking the blade, Gregor forewarned. I'll be careful, have no worry, said Malcolm as the Lord of Ironrath climbed down from his horse and was passed back House Forrester's newest artifact. Malcolm turned around and beamed at seeing his sister. And you, sister? How are you this day? He asked as he helped her down from her horse. I am in good spirits, brother. Now, where are my children? She asked. They are breaking fast in the Great Hall, he replied. Gregor sheathed the Valyrian steel sword and took both that and Winterspan inside with him to the Great Hall to show to his sons and daughter. Standing up in the feasting hall to greet him and Elissa were Gregor's children, Maester Ortengrin, the Master-at-Arms Sir Roland Digor and the Castellan, Duncan Tootle, Gregor's closest friend. My lord. My lady, said Maester Ortengrin. Father, and mother, was shouted from Roderick and Asher as they ran towards them whilst little Myra was being held up by Elissa's handmaiden, Seela. Roderick, my boy. Is it me or have you gotten bigger? Gregor asked as he picked up Roderick with one hand. Yes, father. One day, I'll be as big as you, he proudly proclaimed. And that, I've no doubt, said Gregor with a booming chuckle. And as better looking as you, my lord? Asked Duncan. Gods, I hope so. Gregor boomed with a cheerful laugh as he shook hands with Duncan and then hugged Asher. Now, Seela, can you take the children to their chambers? Asked Elissa. Of course, my lady, said Seela. Whilst Roderick and Asher followed Seela whilst she carried Myra, Gregor sat down at the high table with Elissa, Malcolm, Duncan, Roland and Ortengrin. "What has Lord Stark said in Winterfell, my lord?" asked Maester Ortengrin. "Well, he has announced the progress of the Valyrian roads across the north and the progress of the Kalin Canal. But, to the surprise of us all, he awarded new lordships to landless lords from across the north. Awarding them castles, towns and ports newly built in the Gift and across the north," Gregor explained. "Lucky bastards. The north is such an enormous place, that there is more than enough land to be awarded and new houses to be created," said Malcolm. "Aye. But with new settlers moving to these new places, will mean more food to be grown for the winters and more ironwood to be produced and sold to them," said Duncan. "True. But House Forrester is up to the task. It always has been and always will. And, again Ned Stark surprised us when he gifted us all Valyrian steel weapons," said Gregor. "Valyrian steel, my lord? This is no jest?" asked Maester Ortengrin. "No, it isn't. Gregor tested it on a castle-forged sword before we left Winterfell. The sword shattered like broken glass and House Forrester's new Valyrian steel sword has no sign of any damage at all," said Elissa whilst Gregor drew the sword to show them. Maester Ortengrin held up his Maester's chain to examine the blade against a Valyrian steel link. "It's real. It's genuine Valyrian steel," said the pleasantly surprised Maester. "'Tis a thing of beauty, my lord. Sure to slice up some southerners or even White Hills like a hot knife through butter with that," said Roland. "They have one too, Sir Roland. Admittedly not a great sword like ours," Elissa said. "I should think not. The White Hills are as peely-wally as a rotten banana," Gregor japed. "Aye, my lord. A dagger to us would be a great sword to them," Sir Roland jested, at which he, Malcolm, Gregor and Duncan laughed. "Have you thought of a name for this sword, my lord?" asked Malcolm. "I have. I think Frostbite would be a good name," said Gregor with a smile as he held it up to the sunlight pouring in from the skylight. "Aye, Frostbite sounds like a good name," said Sir Roland. "But what becomes of Wintersburn, my lord?" asked Duncan. "That will be the sword of the heir until he becomes Lord of Ironrath. Then he will wield Frostbite," Gregor decided. "Now, Duncan. How much ironwood has been produced since our departure?" asked Gregor as he sheathed Frostbite. 30 wagon loads of ironwood, my lord. And the new glass gardens around the lumberyards have been completed and the first seeds have been planted," said Duncan. "Excellent work. And Maester, have we had any ravens of note?" asked Elissa. "None of note until yesterday, my lady. Lord Georgie has sent a raven asking for a dozen wagons of ironwood," said Maester Ortengrin. "Did he say why?" asked Malcolm. "He did, Sir Malcolm. Mostly to help make final repairs to the damages done to the castle and the town from the war. But also for the best quality of wood for farming now that winter is almost upon us," he replied. He also stated that he was more than willing to pay 5,000 gold dragons for the ironwood and also pay in recently grown produce of fruit and grain, he finished. "A very fair deal. Gold and food for ironwood. We need both if we are to prepare for the winter. And, if what I suspect is true, Eddard Stark plans to fight for the North's independence. A cause in which I would gladly fight for, as would all bannermen of the North. Shall I send a reply, my lord?" "My lady," asked Maester Ortengrin. "It's a good deal, we shall accept. Duncan shall oversee the transport to Barleyhold," said Gregor. Maester Ortengrin left to send the letter, whilst Gregor and Elissa discussed the state of the household troops of Ironrath with Sir Roland. "We've got 500 men all around House Forrester's lands and 300 in Ironrath. And we have over 3,000 lads and men working to cut down ironwood," said Sir Roland. "Have we been getting many men moving in from elsewhere?" asked Gregor, having heard some stories of families moving to the north for work. "Aye, my lord. Since you and Lady Forrester left for Winterfell, around about 40 families have made a new home in Ironrath. Most from the Riverlands and others from the Crown Lands looking for work," said Sir Roland. "Good. Though that means more mouths to feed, more glass gardens will be built to better provide for my people. And more ironwood will be cut down and be prepared for sale. We may even be able to purchase good livestock from the Riverlands or the Westerlands." "My lord. A raven has just arrived from Winterfell," said Maester Ortengrin as he rejoined them, holding up a letter sealed with the direwolf sigil of House Stark. Gregor took the letter and broke the seal. He was surprised when he read the letter. Though he had suspected of Ned Stark's intentions, he had no idea he had become this ambitious. "What is it, Gregor?" asked Elissa. "Lord Stark would have us produce 2,000 wagons of ironwood within the next 5 years," said Gregor. 2,000. "What in the old gods would he be doing with that much ironwood, my lord?" asked Duncan. "He says it right here. He intends to build 2 fleets for the north. One on the western coast commanded from Bear Island and the other on the eastern coast commanded from White Harbor," said Gregor. "There's been no fleet in the north ever since Brandon the Burner. And now Lord Stark wants to." Sir Roland pointed out. "Now that changes," Duncan added. "How many ships is that, my lord?" asked Malcolm. "I would say around about 200 warships," said Gregor as he glanced at Elissa. Elissa took a deep breath as she looked troubled. She's realized it too, what Ned Stark intends. Well, at least he doesn't intend to declare our independence when we aren't prepared to fight for it. "Will we accept, my lord?" asked Duncan. "Aye, we shall. Maester Ortengrin, send a raven to Lord Mondaly and have him send shipbuilding experts to Ironrath. I would know of how these ships should be designed before we set them on the water," said Gregor. "And, if all works well, 5 years from now, we shall batter the fucking Southerners bloody and we shall finally be free from Targaryen tyranny and the fucking arrogant Southerners thinking that they are better than us." Chapter 11, But the First Step. Chapter text. Jaime 3. "So, brother, how is married life suiting you?" Tyrion asked as Jaime returned from Father Solar with Melita. "It's suiting me well, Tyrion." "Better than it would have suited you," Jaime replied. "Ha, me as a husband. My poor bride would be the laughingstock of the entire Westerlands and the whores would go begging from Dorne to Casterly Rock," said Tyrion. "Not unless Walder Free welcomed them to the Twins and create an entire army of Freys," Melita jested. "Gods, I think that there are more than enough Freys in the world. We don't need more, especially no more at Casterly Rock," said Tyrion. "If only said Freys got the hint that they aren't liked at Casterly Rock." "So, what did father have to say?" asked Tyrion. "Cersei has given birth to a son," said Jaime. "It's clear that she's following her dreams with Rhaegar. How long though until those dreams shatter when she realizes just what kind of a twat he really is? Did she ever truly love me or was it always going to be Rhaegar?" "A healthy boy?" asked Tyrion. "Apparently so. They've named him Jaehaerys and he is now the heir to the Iron Throne," said Jaime reluctantly. "Aegon is the rightful heir. He is not the bastard of Elia and Arthur. He's not the bastard of anyone else. He is a Targaryen, that is clear and plain to see. Cersei ensured their exile from the capital. At least, Elia, Rhaenys and Aegon are safe from Cersei this way. Arthur Dayne is one of the greatest knights that's ever lived. No other knight could ever replace him, his reputation or his honor in the Kingsguard. So, all of father's dreams have come true. Cersei is the queen, and you back at Casterly Rock as his heir. And his grandson will one day be king. I do hope that that means he is smiling," said Tyrion. "The day he smiles is the day that Aemon and his brood stop behaving like some whores being paid to call an ugly man a handsome one," said Jaime. "Ah, I see that being back home has brought back your sense of humor. Good. Recently it was only me and Uncle Jerian whom were making people laugh with our wits," said Tyrion. Jaime and Melita chuckled before Tywin called for Jaime once again. "I'll see you later, brother," Melita said Jaime before he kissed her head. She beamed as he walked away to Father Solar. "Gods, why is it that Cersei still haunts me? She made her choice. She chose to fuck Rhaegar whilst father brought me back home. Until a few moons ago, she was the only woman I had ever been with. And now, I am married, to a beautiful, gentle, kind and sweet woman. She deserves better than a man whom longs for his sister. But, has Cersei ever loved me, as much as she loves Rhaegar?" Jaime entered Father Solar and saw him waiting with Uncle Tijet and Uncle Jerian. "Be seated," said Father. Jaime sat down and looked at the map of the Westerlands on Father's desk. "It is time that you learned how to rule as the future Lord Paramount of the Westerlands and Warden of the West, Jaime. You shall be going to Castamaria and then Tarbeck Hall," said Father. "The ruins of the once great and wealthy houses you destroyed." "Why?" "To build monuments to the greatness of House Lannister." "To what end?" asked Jaime. Your uncle Kevan thinks that it is a waste of gold and silver in Tarbeck and Castamaria's lands to leave as ruins forever as a warning to the enemies of the Lannisters. And I am inclined to agree, said father. So what is to be done about them? Asked Jaime. Tarbeck Hall and Castamaria shall be restored to their former glories. Eddard Stark has been busy restoring old ruins of castles across the north to one day gift his sons. It is a sensible idea. We should be doing the same, said father. You intend for Tarbeck Hall and Castamaria to be awarded to my sons? Asked Jaime. Melita isn't even with child yet. And she isn't a broodmare for House Lannister. She is a good and kind woman. And I will never ever treat her as a broodmare. No. Once they are fully restored, Tijet shall become Lord of Tarbeck Hall and Gerion shall become Lord of Castamaria, said father. Jaime glanced at Uncle Tijet and Uncle Gerion, both of whom were delighted that they would now become lords with their own lands. What of Uncle Kevan? Asked Jaime. Castellon is a summer estate and hunting lodge long gone into disuse. It shall be converted into a castle and its surrounding lands shall be gifted to Kevan, said father. That will be all, said father, and Jaime left his solo with Uncle Gerion and Uncle Tijet. Castellon. I've not been there since Tijet and I used to play there as children, said Uncle Gerion. I've never been there myself, said Jaime. No worries. We'll accompany you there. Maybe we may even find that gold lion statuette that I lost there the last time that we played there, said Uncle Tijet. So, Iman is not getting anything, uncles? Jaime asked. Nope. Nothing for Iman and Jenna, said Uncle Tijet. What has Iman done to deserve even a meager keep other than paying whores that Tyrion's already had his fun with? Half the time he reminds me of our father and how whores would steal our mother's jewelry and laugh at him when he ordered them to put them back, said Uncle Gerion. Yes, that sounds like Iman. I didn't know that Eddard Stark is rebuilding ruined castles across the north, said Jaime. Oh, he is. Building new ones, towns and ports, as well as restoring ancient and old castles. The north sounds like a fascinating place to be in right now. There's so much going on, and yet there's so much mystery. Did you ever meet Eddard Stark in King's Landing, Jaime? Asked Uncle Gerion. Not face to face. He just darkly glared at Rhaegar and furiously refused to swear any oath of fealty to him. Rhaegar couldn't even order him and his men to stay in the Red Keep, said Jaime. Yes, how dare he? How dare he refuse to swear allegiance to the man who kidnapped his sister and left her to die? How dare he refuse to bow to the man whose stupidity started a war and killed his father, brother and sister, said Uncle Tijet. When you say it like that, it just goes to show how many people at court in King's Landing lack any reasoning or understanding, especially the likes of John Connington. As Jaime left to prepare for leaving for Castellon with his uncles, he said a brief goodbye to Melita. And he watched the training yard as he left. He saw Cousin Davin training with Captain Vylar. Gods, I hate being father's heir. I'd much rather be there and training with Davin than doing any of this shit. Elia V. In spite of all that has happened, sister, I am at least glad that you are safe here. You, Rhaenys and Aegon are safer in Dorne than you would have ever been in the Red Keep, said Oberyn as Elia walked around the water gardens together. I know. We are safe here. Especially from Cersei and Rhaegar. Gods, what the fuck was I thinking? Elia muttered as they sat together and she buried her head in her hands. It wasn't your fault, Elia, said Oberyn as he put his arm around her shoulder. No, it was. I was weak. I felt alone. I turned to Arthur to feel better, she moaned. None of this would have happened if I hadn't felt so selfish. Elia. Elia. Look at me, said Oberyn. Elia looked up again and faced her younger brother. Do you love Arthur? He asked. Yes. I've always loved him. Even when I first wed Rhaegar, I missed Arthur and longed for him to be there by my side, she said. Then you are not in the wrong. You love Arthur. And he has always loved you. He still loves you now, said Oberyn. Rhaegar will come around. You may not be queen now nor in the future, but he will soon see what sort of woman Cersei Lannister is. And he will recognize Rhaenys and Aegon as his children, said Oberyn. I hope so. Whatever happens to me, I don't care, so long as Aegon inherits what is his by right and that both he and Rhaenys will be well. Don't say that, Elia. They need you. They will always need you by their side. You are their mother. They don't have a father because he was too selfish and his head and his cock had gone too far up Cersei's cunt that he can't think straight. Rhaegar is a lot of things, but he is no fool. He will soon see the error of his ways, said Oberyn. I pray to the gods and to Mother Rowan for that. Because if he dares to name his son with Cersei as Prince of Dragonstone, then I will hire one of the faceless men of Braavos to kill him and Cersei, said Elia. Come now, sister. Why do that when I can go into King's Landing myself and do both deeds for my sister and for my handsome little nephew? Oberyn asked. Elia grinned before she hugged Oberyn. Thank you, Oberyn. I don't know what I'd do without you or Doran. The world has just turned as mad as Aes, said Elia. Indeed it has. By the way, have you heard from Ashura recently? Oberyn asked. I have. She is well after giving birth to twins. A son and daughter called Halric and Elyana, she said. I hope to see Ash again soon. And meet her beautiful little children. Perhaps while I'm there, Arthur will also be there, visiting his nephews and niece. It still amazes me that the gorgeous and stunning Star of Dawn married a grisly, rugged and hard northerner, said Oberyn. Ash told me that the only husband she wanted was one who was good to her, loved her for who she is and would love their children. Ned is that very man. She's never cared for gold, being a lady paramount or for being married to the most handsome man in the world, said Elia. Prince Oberyn. Princess Elia. Prince Doran both request your presence, said a hard voice behind them. Elia turned around to see Doran's guard captain, Aeryo Hotter, an enormous and powerfully built man whom wielded an axe huge enough to cleave a horse's head off. Thank you, Aeryo, said Oberyn as he and Elia stood up and started walking to Doran's manse overlooking the gardens. What could our brother want? Elia asked. Perhaps he has some plan to ensure that Aegon is the crown prince and not Cersei's son Jaehaerys. Oberyn wondered. It'd have to be a good plan. Because short of murder, I don't know what will, said Elia. Not even war? Oberyn asked. No. Never. Brother, I have seen what war does to people. Whether noble or common-born, war destroys lives as well as takes them. The rebellion cost the lives of tens of thousands from the north, the Riverlands, the Vale, the Stormlands, the Reach and the Crown Lands. Even if it is for Aegon to take what is rightfully his, I would never want thousands to die in his name, said Elia. Yet another reason why the people of King's Landing yearn for you, sister. I cannot imagine Cersei would be such a thing, said Oberyn. Aeryo escorted them inside Doran's sightseeing viewpoint, his favorite part of his manse in the Water Gardens. It's good seeing Rhaenys and Aegon are happy here, sister, said Doran. Elia looked out at the gardens and smiled when she saw Rhaenys dancing in circles with Doran's daughter Arianne and Oberyn's daughters Nymeria, Tyen and Sarilla. Aegon meanwhile was being looked after by Doran's son Quentyn and Oberyn's paramour Ellaria Sand. It is. All while Rhaegar pours his hopes into Cersei Lannister, giving him 3 dragons' heads and calls his own children bastards and calls me a whore, said Elia as she and Oberyn sat on either side of Doran. I have exchanged letters with Jon Connington on the matter, said Doran. Connington. That ginger griffin loves Rhaegar more than any woman ever will. And he has made it no secret that he doesn't like me, said Elia. Not to mention he has a small cock and a very tight ass, added Oberyn. What? Brother, you've failed to mention that you've fucked Jon Connington, said Elia with a raised brow. What can I say? It was the tourney of Harrenhal. We were both drunk and our beds were cold that night. Though he kept whispering Rhaegar every time he stuck his cock in me and every time I stuck my cock in him, said Oberyn. Gods, I didn't need to hear that. And what has Jon Connington said? Asked Elia. He says that dismissing you in such a way was a mistake and he knows for a fact that Rhaenys and Aegon are Rhaegar's children. He said that he will try and talk some sense into Rhaegar, but it will be difficult because Cersei has been moving more Lannisters and Westermen into court positions. And she has replaced Arthur on the Kingsguard, said Doran. No one could ever replace Arthur. Neither as a good and honorable man, a true knight, nor as one of the greatest swordsmen in the history of Westeros. Who has she replaced him with? Asked Oberyn. A Vale knight, called Lyn Corbray. Whom wields his family's Valyrian steel sword, called Lady Forlorn, said Doran. I've heard of Lyn Corbray. I saw him at Harrenhal. And none of what I heard about him was good, said Oberyn with a disgusted frown. What is there to know about him, Oberyn? Asked Elia. He is a very skilled fighter. But he also has a fondness for little boys, said Oberyn. What the fuck is wrong with you, Cersei Lannister? Do you choose Kingsguard for no other reason than that they are loyal only to you? You would let a child raper serve in the Kingsguard, when he will one day be guarding your children. What solutions are there to Aegon taking his rightful place as Crown Prince and as our future king? Oberyn asked. For now, I don't see much solution. All I can say right now, is that our answer will come to us, we just need to be patient, said Doran. Ashura 7. My lady, you do indeed carry another child, said Maester Jellimund. Another? I thought that 3 children was more than enough. The old gods bless us, Ash said Ned as he sat beside her and kissed her hand he was holding before kissing her passionately as their lips met. Easy for you to say, Ned. You've never given birth, said Ashura. I know. But, even after all the pain you go through, holding your child in your arms. There is no better feeling, he said. No, you're right, she thought as she beamed at Ned and pulled him down for another kiss. Maester Jellimund, do we know how long? Ashura asked. I would think in 7 moons at the most, my lady. 8 at the most, he replied as he stood up. I hope it won't be more twins. Giving birth to Halric and Elyana was a pain I never want a repeat of, said Ashura. Ned helped Ashura get out of bed and they held hands as they walked to the Great Hall. On their way, Veon met with them. My lord, my lady. Master Kaladin IV awaits you in the Great Hall, as Sir Wendell of House Marndaeli, said Veon. Thank you, Veon, said Ned before they continued walking together to the Great Hall. Sir Wendell Marndaeli. What's he here for? Asked Ashura. For help in one final construction project across the north. Shipyards added to castles or towns built by the water. Currently we possess only one, at White Harbor. If we are to be an independent kingdom, we need to possess a skilled navy and one that has more than one safe harbor, said Ned. Do we have enough coin for all of this? Asked Ashura. Aye, we do. Yesterday I spoke with Veon and Maester Jellimund and they said that we have near 1 million gold dragons, said Ned. Nearly 1 million in our treasury, and we've already spent nearly that amount in renewing the North and Ned's ambitious projects. Gods, what would the kings in the North think of Ned and I if they were looking at us right now? I agree, that's more than enough. But don't forget that once the Valyrian roads around the North are complete, we will still have a final payment of 500,000 to pay to the Guild of Crafters. Don't worry, Ash. I haven't forgotten, said Ned before they stepped inside the Great Hall, where Sir Roderick announced them. Ashura looked down at Kaladin IV, the Winterfell architect whom Ned had entrusted with the task of overseeing the clearance of rubble from the First Keep and the Broken Tower and the restoration of both for further use. My lord, my lady. I am proud to say that my men and I have succeeded in the restoration of the First Keep and the Broken Tower, he announced proudly. Excellent work, Master Kaladin. So, the First Keep is ready to be used should the need arise? Asked Ned. The Broken Tower had been restored to become another barracks for the garrison and the First Keep had been restored to act as residence for visiting guests of note and the bannermen. Aye, my lord. All is restored and ready, said the best architect in Winterfell. Excellent work, Master Kaladin. Veon shall ensure that you are fully paid for you and your men's work. And once this is over, I shall be interested in speaking with you for further work in my solar, said Ned. Kaladin bowed before taking his leave. And now, Sir Wendell Marndaeli, the second son of Lord Wyman, took his place. Sir Wendell, my thanks for coming on such short notice. Now, I have an important task I would bring to House Marndaeli. If you are not too busy, said Ned. We are busy, my lord, with the construction of the fleets alongside House Forrester. But my lord father would be more than honored to help with further work that you would have of us, my lord, said Sir Wendell. Very good. Now, it is my wish for new shipyards to be built in the north, one at every coastal castle or town in the north. My count at that was 13, excluding White Harbor of course. Is that something that House Marndaeli can help with? To build the required shipyards? Aye, my lord. I am confident that House Marndaeli can achieve this, he said. Very good, sir. I shall write ravens to the relevant lords to expect architects of White Harbor for this task. Let me know of all costs and I shall pay all that is required. "And until your trip back home to White Harbor, the hospitality of Winterfell is yours," said Ned. "My thanks, my lord. With your permission, I shall write a raven to my lord father," said Sir Wendell. Ned nodded and Sir Wendell bowed and took his leave. "So many shipyards," Ashura commented. "Aye, for trading and also for our fleets. It would not do to have half of them all at Bear Island and the other half to all be at White Harbor," said Ned. "No. Of course not. And perhaps, we can contact House Dane to purchase Dornish sand steeds," Ashura suggested. "Dornish sand steeds? What for?" asked Ned. "For the northern armies. It was the Dornish who held back the Targaryens and resisted them for over a century. One of their methods was using sand steeds, fast and agile. Used by mounted archers, for fast and mobile warfare," Ashura explained. "Such horses would be unused to northern climates," Ned pointed out. "True, but if bred with strong and hardy northern horses, then they should be more than ready to be used for mounted warfare," Ashura replied. Ned nodded as he thought about this. "Aye, you are in the right, Ash. I shall send a raven to Aaron and see how many he can sell to us," said Ned. "Rhaegar, by the time we are ready for war, you won't know what fucking hit you. You'll be spending the rest of your pathetic life regretting making an enemy of the North." Eddard 7. "Father, what's that?" asked Prydain as he pointed at ice on the mantelpiece of Eddard's solar. "That, Prydain, is ice. It has belonged to our family for many years. One day, it will be you who will use it in battle against our enemies," said Eddard. "But it is bigger than I am," said Prydain. "Aye, it is. But one day you will be bigger," said Eddard as he held up Prydain to look at the tapestries on the walls. "Those are your ancestors, Prydain. Once great kings in the north," said Eddard. "Old Nan says that we aren't kings anymore," said Prydain. There was a knock on the door. "Come, Prydain, time you got down," said Eddard as he put him down. It was Ash and Maester Jellimund. "Good news, my lord. We've just received a raven from Master Varono at Castle Sawin," said Maester Jellimund. "And?" Eddard asked, his temperament heightened with excitement. "Valyrian roads now cover the entirety of the King's Road. Now we can have them built at all castles, towns and ports," said Ash. Aye, this is good news," said Eddard as he looked at the map of the north whilst he noticed Prydain glancing at the tapestries of perhaps the most notorious of all of his ancestors, Theon Stark, the Hungry Wolf and Bane of the Andals. "I hope that he doesn't become like him. The man sacrificed men to the old gods by stringing their innards to heart trees and sent his enemies to the Dread Fort for interrogation." Eddard traced his finger from Greywater Watch to Castle Black. "It will be easy now to connect all Lord's holdings to the King's Road. Once connected, it will hasten travel, trading by land and armies marching," said Eddard. "And hasten the construction of the Kalin Canal," Maester Jellimund pointed out. "Aye, exactly," said Eddard. "Speaking of which, what is the news on its progress?" asked Ash as she picked up Prydain as he had just climbed onto the windowsill. "Master Theofred sent a raven stating that they had 10 more feet of ground to clear and then they should be ready to open the gates and let the water inside," said Eddard. "How long will that take, my lord?" asked Maester Jellimund. 8 moons. Perhaps even a year. Either way, it won't be long," said Eddard. "But until then, we should all go for a ride and see for ourselves the success of the Valyrian roads," said Eddard. "All of us, Ned?" asked Ash. "Aye, though the children should take the wheelhouse and with plenty of furs," said Eddard. Eddard found his horse at the stables just as he saw Ash bringing Prydain, Halric and Elyanar into their wheelhouse, the very same one which brought Ash to Winterfell just after the rebellion and after Eddard had begun his plans for northern independence. When Ash had helped the children inside, she spotted Eddard and beamed at him. He beamed back before riding outside the Great Keep's gates and out of Winterfell. Eddard was impressed at the great stone and paved roads before him. Even with snow falling on the roads, water dribbled down the sides and onto the ground besides the roads. The stone was raised a foot off the ground and Eddard was impressed with how wide it was and how easy it would be travel and trade and that there wouldn't be traffic hold-ups due to merchants' wagons getting caught in mud or wheels and axles breaking from hitting large rocks. And as far as he could see and as far as the wintry clouds could allow him to see, these roads continued all of the way south and all of the way north when he turned around to see the wheelhouse catching up with him. Eddard glanced at the wheels of the wheelhouse and noticed how there was no sign of imminent damage to the wheels or to the axles. "Does it feel different to when you were last in this wheelhouse?" asked Eddard as he peered through the door. "Yes, it does. I don't jump and fall back on my seat every time the wheelhouse goes over a rock, and I feel as though I can actually think without the racket of traveling down a muddy road," said Ash. Eddard beamed that it was all a success. And he looked around at Prydain, Halric and Eliana. "And how are our children faring in their first ever ride in a wheelhouse?" "Yes, they seem to be coping," she said. "What do you think, Prydain?" asked Eddard. "It's beautiful outside, father. I want to play in the snow." "Not yet, I'm afraid, my boy. Perhaps once we're back in Winterfell," said Eddard. Chapter 12, Unreasonable Offer. Chapter Text. Jaime 4. The works in Tarbeck Hall are finished. Castamere is going to be another year before the builders can divert the river back to its original course rather than into the castle itself, and only then can we start to restore the castle to what it once was, once the remaining water inside is cleared out, of course, said Jaime as he gave his report to father. Father gave a mere semblance of a nod as he looked at the map of the Westerlands. "And Castellon," asked father, "is halfway to being completed. Peoples from surrounding areas have already started to build their own homes in the lands surrounding it. The restorations are complete, but it will take a long time to turn it from a small summer estate and hunting lodge into a castle worthy of House Lannister," said Jaime. Father raised a brow and then looked up at Jaime. "As my heir, it is expected of you to focus on the work at hand and not divert your attention to petty distractions such as riding around the work sites and practicing your swordcraft," said father. "It's the only way I can cure my fucking boredom. I was always meant to be a knight, never a fucking builder nor a lord paramount of the Westerlands like you. If only mother didn't die giving birth to Tyrion, and if only Tyrion wasn't a dwarf. Then he'd have become the heir you always wanted. You are my eldest son and heir. You are a Lannister, and Lannisters do not act like fools. This work isn't merely to add to the banners of the Westerlands. It isn't to add more soldiers to fight for House Lannister. It is to spread a legacy of the Lannisters and to keep a firm and strong hold onto the Westerlands. This is what we need if we are to ensure that Lannisters are to join with House Targaryen. Your sister becoming queen and your nephew being the crown prince is merely the start. Once Jaehaerys is king, it will be House Lannister which will be by his side at all times. And when we are, it will be a union of House Lannister and House Targaryen that shall make the entire realm prosper like it has never before. It will be House Lannister which the other houses will see as the one true power of the realm once Jaehaerys is king. And when it is, then that is when you must be the man you were always destined to be. And that doesn't start tomorrow. It doesn't start next year. It won't start when your nephew is king. Now." Jaime frowned at the expectations that father had on him. "Does he think that I will become anything like him? I fucking won't. It's too late for me to change into a man who doesn't smile and puts his work and his duties before anything else. But one thing is for certain, when I do become a father, I won't be anything like you. I will always be good to my children, no matter how different they are." A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts before father could say any more. "Enter," said father. It was Maester Crelan. "Pardon, my lords. It is Lady Melita," he said. "What? Has something happened to her? Why haven't I been by her side when I've been gallivanting around riding and practice with my sword? Is she well?" Jaime asked worriedly. "She is bedridden, my lord." "She is with child," he said with a proud smile. "She is? Where is she?" Jaime asked. "Your chambers, my lord," he replied. Needing no further words, Jaime ran from father's solar and sprinted until he found Melita. She lay on their bed, drinking water and eating food brought up for her on a tray. "Melita," he said. "Jaime. Maester Crelan told you?" she asked with a beaming smile. "Yes, he did," he said as he sat by her side. He held her hand and stroked her face before leaning down and kissing her gently on the lips. "Does he know how long until it is expected?" he asked. "He said 7 or 8 moons," she said, bringing his hand to her lips and kissing it. "I am so sorry, Melita. I should have been by your side. I've been gone for so long that I didn't think," he said. Melita sat up in her bed and still she smiled as she always did. She smiled like this so much that Jamie couldn't imagine her not smiling. It's okay, Jamie. It truly is. Just as long as you promise that you will be by my side when the time comes, she said. I promise. Of course I do. I promise, he said before he leant in and kissed her again. Melita looked up and still she smiled. Lord Tywine, she said. Jamie turned around to see father standing in the doorway. I understand congratulations are in order, Melita, he said. Yes. Thank you, she said. Have you considered a name for your child? Father asked. Not yet. But we will soon. We have another many moons before the time comes, she replied. Father just nodded before turning to Jamie. Come, we should speak. Let your wife rest for a while. She will need it, he said. Jamie stood up and turned around to Melita. I will keep my promise. I swear. I will be by your side when the time comes, he said. I know you will, Jamie, she said. Jamie turned back around and left his bedchambers with father and stood looking out of the nearby balcony, looking down at Lannisport from the balustrade. Your own heir now. When you do become a father, it will be you whom will turn your children into Lannisters. It will be you who will teach them what I am teaching you. I won't be around forever to teach them what is expected of them. That will be your task, said father. I know, father, said Jamie. But I still won't be like you in raising them. I will always be by their side and be good to them like you never were to Tyrion. Jon 7. The Northerners have paid their taxes on time once more. Rhaegar asked in surprise. Yes, your grace. It would seem that Eddard Stark's investments were well paid off, Sir Kevan commented. Even if he is paying his taxes in time, like the Arryns, Tullys and Baratheons, why is it that the hairs in the back of my neck rise whenever there is talk of the North in the small council? Eddard Stark is up to acts of treason. I know it, and yet I cannot prove it. Lord Varys, has there been any noteworthy news from any of the crown's treasonous subjects? Asked Richard. Robert Baratheon has celebrated the birth of his second son, Edric, by inviting the lords of the Stormlands to a grand feast at Storm's End. His brother Stannis seems to have calmed his appetite for whores. And Stannis and his companion, the smuggler-turned-onion knight, Davos Seaworth, have started building shipyards across the Stormlands. Shipyards, but not warships? Asked Miles. No, Sir Miles. It would seem that they are focusing on trading to further their economy. My little birds in Storm's End say that they are in no shape at all to start a new rebellion anytime soon. Their only priority is paying the taxes, said Lord Varys. Good. Good news. I'm amazed that Stannis has managed to temper his brother into ending his whoring habits. It's a pity that he was not the eldest son of Steffon Baratheon as opposed to Robert. Jon Arryn is keeping a firm hold on the Vale and at the moment is focusing on fighting off hill tribes and Sisterman pirates, said Lord Varys. So the armies and fleet of the Vale is all mustered to fight off these hill tribes and Sisterman pirates? Asked Jon. Yes, my Lord Hand. Though there have been a few whispers amongst certain lords of the Vale who say that they should declare independence from the Iron Throne, said Varys. And they are? Asked Rhaegar. Only one name keeps coming up, your grace. Lord Yohn Royce of Runestone, said Varys. Bronze Yohn Royce. He would dare to lead such treasonous talk and break fealty with House Targaryen. After all House Targaryen has done for the Vale and for House Royce. These traitors surprise me every day with their actions. Is his talk of sedition and treason well received by the other lords of the Vale? Asked Grand Maester Pycelle. It is not. No. There are a few who are angry towards the Iron Throne, but that is it. They either are unwilling to declare independence or they fear the Iron Throne or potential reprisals should they go through with it, said Varys. Sensible. It's good to see wisdom can take hold in these traitors. And what of the Riverlands? Asked Rhaegar. Your Grace, the Riverlands seems to be quiet. The Riverlords are mostly loyal to the Iron Throne, barring a few exceptions whom lost family and friends in the fighting, said Varys. After the treasons committed, why should they think any different? They are fortunate that they have been forgiven and pardoned and that their families aren't exterminated and their lands awarded to new and loyal lords. And what of the Tullys? Asked Miles. Hoster Tully is said to be dying as a result of drinking too much. All the while, Bryndon the Blackfish has been lecturing his nephew Edmure on ruling and on war, said Varys. If the son is anything like his father, he will be too ambitious for his own good. But his ambitions won't be fulfilled when it is well known that his father was a traitor and his sister also. He will spend the rest of his life begging for forgiveness from the Iron Throne to wipe the stain of treason from his house. He will be truly fortunate if he gets a bride from the Freys. And the Northerners. What is going on in Winterfell? Asked Jon. Hopefully, he will have uncovered whatever treasons Eddard Stark is planning. It gnaws away at me knowing that Stark is skilled at hiding secrets from even Varys the Spider. I have discovered what it was that the Guild of Crafters was hired for, my Lord Hand, said Varys. Damn. I was hoping that he would have the proof I would need to march to Winterfell, burn it to the ground and chop Eddard Stark's head off. And what is it? Asked Jon, disappointed. 2 projects. The first was to build Valyrian roads all around the north, said Varys. Valyrian roads. What are they? Asked Sir Kevan. They are paved roads, Sir Kevan. Paved with stone and sealed together with oil from the lands of the long summer. Supposedly thrice as wide as roads found here in the 7 kingdoms. They dot the lands of the lower half of the free cities to Slavers Bay, Pycelle explained. And they have been building these roads in the north and the north alone, asked Richard. Yes, Lord Lunmouth, said Varys. These Valyrian roads. What benefit are they to the Northerners? Asked Miles. They hasten the speed of travelers and merchants, Sir Miles. And as the Grand Maester pointed out, they are wide enough to avoid roadblocks from caravans or wheelhouses getting caught in mud, said Varys. And are wide enough for large armies to efficiently and safely travel on, Jon surmised. Why have they built them in the north alone and not offered their services to the Iron Throne? Jon asked Varys. The Guild of Crafters are very particular on whom they do business with, Lord Hand. And on how they do business. They never offer business, they only accept offers made to them by others, whether it is wanting roads, aqueducts or fortifications built. Now I suspect that they accepted Eddard Stark's offer when they heard of the successful mining projects he was launching and knew that his word was backed by plentiful coin. How is it only now that we find out about this? That Eddard Stark has enough coin to build these supposedly divine roads which can increase the speed of travel and of trade overland. You said there was a second, Lord Varys, asked Roriger. Indeed, Your Grace. It would seem that Eddard Stark is building a canal. A canal? Where? And to what end? Asked Richard. Could we have a map brought here, Your Grace? I think it would be best if I showed you on a map, said Varys. Of course, said Roriger before turning around to the main door to the small council. Viserys. Have a map of the 7 kingdoms brought here at once, he called out to his squire, his younger brother Viserys, whom was waiting on the other side of the door. Viserys quickly brought a map of the 7 kingdoms. Varys traced his finger from the western coast of the north to the eastern coast, just above Moat Cailin. From the end of the Fever River to the end of the White Knife River, Your Grace, said Varys. Does this mean that Eddard Stark intends to curtail long sea voyages from one part of Westeros to another? Asked Richard. Indeed, Lord Lunmouth, said Varys. Is Stark close to completing it? Asked Miles. Not yet, Sir Miles. But he isn't far away. My little birds think that it will be at most half a year before it is complete, said Varys. As much as I hate to admit it, this would be of incredible benefit to the realm. If we have only just found out about it, then it's reasonable to assume that the rest of the realm doesn't know of it. Grand Maester, send a raven to Winterfell. Tell Eddard Stark that we are more than willing to help with this canal and to offer a royal marriage between House Targaryen and House Stark, in exchange for a small increase in taxes, and that he and his bannermen swear fealty to me, said Roriger. Your Grace, forgive me, but is that wise? The Northerners are already paying double their usual taxes, said Richard. Seeing as they are benefiting so well from their mining and other such projects, it's only fair that their taxes match their annual profits. And it has been nearly 4 years since I was crowned king. He and his bannermen insult the Iron Throne by not seeing reason and not coming to King's Landing to swear fealty. This insolence cannot go on much longer. Arthur v. 1000 Sand Steeds of Dawn. The north has certainly changed ever since I was last there, Arthur thought as he could see Winterfell in the distance. When Arran received the raven from Winterfell offering 15,000 gold dragons for Dornish sand steeds, he immediately accepted and sent Arthur to gather as many as he could. But why do they want these sand steeds? The horses of the north are all large, hard and strong. So why would they want horses unused to the wintry climates of the north? Ever since his exile to Starfall, Arthur had sworn to Arran that he would serve House Dane for all his days. Arran accepted, and in spite of giving him work and following his orders to the best of his ability, still Dorne did not accept Arthur. He looked behind to see dozens of herds of more than 30 horses in each one, closely guarded and herded by household soldiers and stable hands of House Dane. He looked back ahead to Winterfell and admired the paved stones that covered the now widened King's Road. Incredible. When did they build this? And how? More importantly, how come only the north has these roads? I've never seen these types of roads anywhere else. My lord, said Sir Ezekiel Cappan, pointing ahead. Arthur still found it strange to be addressed as my lord as opposed to being addressed as Sir Arthur. The worst thing Rhaegar could have done, was strip me of my knighthood. I may have lost what it meant to be a knight, but it is one of the things I was most proud of. He looked ahead to see a party of horsemen riding towards them, wearing the armor of the household soldiers of House Stark. He recognized the commander as he rode towards them. Sir Roderick Castle. Sir Roderick, said Arthur, nodding to him as the old and grizzled knight stopped a few feet ahead of him. Lord Arthur. You and your men are all welcome to Winterfell, he said before glancing at the many horses behind them. Very beautiful horses, he commented. Lord and Lady Stark are awaiting you, my lord, at the Great Keep. Come, he said. Arthur, Sir Ezekiel, their men and their many herds of horses followed after Sir Roderick and his men until they arrived before the gates of Winterfell. What becomes of the horses now, Sir Roderick? Asked Arthur. Lord and Lady Stark intend to have them breed with northern horses to have fast and agile horses used to our climates here, my lord, he replied. To what end? Fast riding over wintry terrains. No, there's more to this. But what? Ash will tell me, surely. I do not want to lose her too. Nor Ned or my niece and nephews. Whilst the horses were passed to various northern horsemen or horse herdsmen, Arthur and Sir Ezekiel led their men inside Winterfell. Sir Roderick, when did those roads get finished? I ask because they weren't there the last time I was here, said Arthur. They weren't. Things have changed since you were here last, my lord. Lord Stark has built these roads, called Valyrian roads, across the north, using the Guild of Crafters of Volantis. They built it covering the entire King's Road in the north, and they are building them across the north right now, from the King's Road to all northern holdings, Sir Roderick explained. They'd certainly be very useful back home in Dorne, Sir Ezekiel commented as they came to the gates of the Great Keep. As the gates opened, Arthur beamed when he saw his good brother, his sister and a little girl and 2 little boys standing between them. Prydain. Halric. Elyanar. Welcome back to Winterfell, brother, said Ashura. Lord Dane, welcome, said Ned. Ashura looked down at Prydain and nudged him gently. Little Prydain ran up to Arthur. Welcome to Winterfell, Uncle Arthur, he said with a shy smile. Arthur knelt down to greet his nephew, beaming as he did so. Thank you, Prydain. You've gotten bigger since the last time I saw you, said Arthur as he reached out and gently messed with his growing black hair. He has the violet eyes of the Danes, as opposed to the grey eyes of the Starks. Arthur stood back up and walked with Prydain to his parents and siblings. And this is Halric and Elyanar, said Ashura. Meet your uncle Arthur, Ned said to the twins. Halric looked unsure of Arthur whilst Elyanar smiled as though this was the happiest day of her life. Heo, Uncle Arthur, said Elyanar. Gods, she is the cutest little thing in the world. Hello, Elyanar, he said, kneeling down to greet her. She reminds me of Rhaenys, in a way. I wonder how she is. And Aegon. And Elia. Gods, I miss her. I just want to see her again, even if it's the last thing I do. Come, let's get inside where it's warm, said Ned. Arthur turned around to see Sir Ezekiel and their men, in spite of their fur cloaks, shivered in the cold northern winds. Sir Roderick, show the men of Starfall where they are quartered, said Ned. Sir Roderick escorted the men to the same barracks where the men protecting Elia stayed in the last time Arthur had come to Winterfell. He and Sir Ezekiel were brought inside and he smirked when he saw Sir Ezekiel's shock at realizing the warmth of Winterfell's great keep. In the great hall, Ned pulled Arthur aside to speak. "The gold for the horses is waiting for you in your chambers. And thank you very much for their safe arrival." "I cannot imagine the sea journey was a pleasant one," said Ned. "It was actually pleasant, at first. But as soon as we passed by Fair Isle, that's when the climate turned cold. Now, I hope you can answer me, why does the North need sand steeds? To interbreed with the hardy and strong horses. I want for the North to possess good horses that are fast and agile as well as hard, strong and able to endure any climate, whether in winter in the North or summer in Dawn," said Ned. Chapter 13, Further Steps. Chapter Text. Ashura 8. "Say hello to your new brother," Prydain said. "Ashura. My brother. But I have a brother, mother." "I have Halric," said Prydain as he looked at Ashura in confusion in Ashura and Ned's chambers. Ashura smiled at her eldest child whilst she held her newly born son in her arms. "Yes, you do. But this is your new brother. His name is Artos," she said. "Artos?" he asked as he walked by Ashura's side. "Yes, Artos," she replied, beaming at her eldest and her youngest. Prydain waved his hand above Artos' head. "Hello, Artos. I am Prydain," he said. Artos cooed at Prydain and started waving his hands and feet around. "Why doesn't he talk, mother?" asked Prydain. "He is young, Prydain. He needs to learn first and to grow big like you and grow strong," said Ashura. "Now, will you be good to your brother, Prydain? Like you are good to Halric and to Elaena?" asked Ashura. "Yes, mother. I love Halric. I love Elaena. I love Artos. I love father. And I love you," he said. Ashura beamed as she reached out and grabbed Prydain and pulled him towards he and kissed his head. "I know, Prydain. I know that you are a good little boy," she said. "I'm not little, mother. I am almost 5 years old. And I am half father's height," he insisted. Ashura chuckled and said, "Forgive me, Prydain. Of course you will one day be a great warrior. Now, go to the sparring yard and begin your lessons with Sir Roderick. He will be a great warrior one day if Dawn allowing him to hold it is anything to go by." Prydain left his parents' chambers and started running to the sparring yard, no doubt to spar with Halric. "And how is the love of my life and the newest member of House Stark?" asked Ned. Ashura looked up to see Ned enter their chambers and was beaming as he sat by Ashura's side. He leant forward to kiss her passionately. "Has he just been fed?" Ned asked as he looked down at Artos, whom was drifting to sleep. "Yes, just before Prydain came to meet his brother before he went to the yard," said Ashura. "Good. Shall I put him to bed?" asked Ned. "Please. Feeding him took my energy out of me," she said before passing Artos to Ned, kissing Artos' tiny head before Ned took hold of him. Ned picked up Artos and gently lay him in his bassinet. Ned kissed his head as he lay him down before standing back up and rejoining Ashura on their bed. "What did Maester Jellimond say?" asked Ned. "He said that it will be another week before I can get back to my duties," she said as Ned wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Gods, I love it when he does that. I just feel so safe and so content when he puts his arm around me." "So, what is it that has you in so great a mood?" asked Ashura as Ned kissed Ashura's cheek. "What? Can a man not be in a great mood just at seeing his wonderful wife and their newly born child?" asked Ned. "Yes, of course he can. But you forget that I know my husband too well. I know when you are excited," she said as she traced her finger from Ned's forehead to his lips and wagged her finger playfully. You know me too well," said Ned with a chuckle. "Indeed, I do. So, what is it that has you so excited?" "The Valyrian roads are all complete," he said. "Truly?" she asked. "Gods, this is fantastic. The lords have all been saying how quicker it is making trading around the north. Lord Marndaly wrote that it has made traveling from White Harbor to Ironrath and back far quicker and more productive," said Ned. "Speaking of which, what progress is there on the ships?" "They have built 75 warships so far. All strong and seaworthy. They recently decided to hire Iron Islander shipwrights to advise and have obtained more workers to build more at a time. But, progress is good. As is the Kalin Canal," said Ned. The Kalin Canal. How much longer now? 2 or 3 moons. And that reminds me, Roriger sent a raven. He found out about the Valyrian roads and the Kalin Canal, said Ned. Oh fucking shit. Fucking Varys, that fucking eunuch. It's a pity his balls were cut off rather than his head. And what does he want? Asked Ashura. Ned frowned darkly as they spoke of the Targaryen shit who had so insulted House Stark and the North and was responsible for the deaths of 3 Starks and hundreds of Northerners. He offered a royal marriage between Lyanna and Jaehaerys and help in building the Kalin Canal. In exchange, we pay triple taxes to him and we and our bannermen must go to King's Landing to fucking and swear fealty to him. Ned furiously whispered. Marry my sweet and precious daughter to a fucking Targaryen. Born from Roriger and from Cersei Lannister. That is never ever fucking happening. Not after what they did to Elia and to Arthur. What have you said? Asked Ashura, eagerly awaiting Ned's reply. I've written a reply basically telling him that I'd be using his letter to wipe my ass, he replied. Ashura giggled at his answer. Oh, to be a fly on the wall when that letter is read out in the small council. Jon 8. Lord Stark has not been courteous in his reply, Your Grace, Pycelle said sheepishly as he opened the letter. Just spit it out already. All is well, Grand Maester. It is only words, Roriger assured him with his soothing voice. Gods, I love hearing his voice when he talks like that. If only the circumstances were different. He says, to the man who sits on the Iron Throne and wears the crown, I say this. I pay the increased taxes you have enforced on my bannermen, my people and me, and have had to work to provide for the North and for my people's future. So why is it, that when we are suddenly doing well, that you Southerners take such a convenient interest in the North when you never have before? We have accomplished much since my return home from King's Landing years ago. The Valyrian roads are complete and more banners answer to Winterfell and more people call the North home. So why should we accept your fucking help, when we've done so well without any help from you? I love my daughter very much, something you could learn from. I would never ever want her to be betrothed to your son, neither Aegon nor Jaehaerys, or live in the city where so many of her family have either suffered or have been murdered. One last thing, your letter with your offer, I shall be keeping it in the Great Keep. To use whenever I need to wipe my ass. Signed. Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. The nerve of this northern shit. How dare he insult Roriger in such a way? He offers him a helping hand and a royal marriage, far more than he would ever deserve after all of his numerous insults and treasons. And he thinks to spit on Roriger's hand as he offers it as a sign of forgiveness and of friendship. I cannot decide whether Eddard Stark is very brave or very stupid, Richard commented. The latter. He is stupid and foolish. To insult the king in such a way. This is clearly treason and must be answered for, said Jon. Patience, Lord Hand. Eddard Stark isn't this stupid. He wouldn't make this sort of insult if he wasn't confident that his allies would come to his aid, said Miles. Jon is right, however. This letter is pure treason. The Northerners must answer for it, said Roriger. At last, we can march on Winterfell and teach those fucking insolent and barbaric Northerners a lesson that will be the talk of legends. Tywin Lannister made his name from the eradication of Houses Reyne and Tarbeck. Roriger shall do the same when he invades the North, and when he takes Moat Cailin, White Harbour, Barrowton, the Dread Fort, Carhold, Last Hearth and Winterfell. I would advise caution, Your Grace. Sir Miles is correct that Eddard Stark wouldn't make this sort of reply if he thought that the North wasn't fully fortified from an invasion, said Varys. You would have us do nothing when treason is made against the king, Lord Varys, said Jon. Your Grace, now wouldn't be the time to invade the North, said Varys. What? What do you mean? Asked Roriger. Your Grace, the Northerners have plenty of allies, in the Riverlands, the Stormlands, the Vale and possibly in Dorne, said Varys. Dorne? Why in Dorne? House Dane, asked Sir Kevan. Not just House Dane, Sir Kevan. Prince Doran and Prince Oberyn have taken an active role in the raising of Rhaenys and Aegon waters, thinking them to be Targaryens and raising them as such. They are Targaryens, but that is besides the point. Wait a fucking minute. I see where they are getting to. What is your point, Lord Varys? Asked Roriger. Your Grace, I think what Varys is trying to say is that if you personally led the royal armies to march on Winterfell, the Martells would find out and could take King's Landing in a surprise attack and claim the Iron Throne in the name of Aegon Waters. And our surrounding neighbors containing treasonous nobles in the Riverlands and the Stormlands would do little, if anything, to stop it, said Miles. Gods help us, this is exactly what I feared after the thoughtless exile of Elia, Arthur and Elia's children. Rhaegar's face blanched at Miles' statement, and it seemed to Jon that he realized the full consequences of what Rhaegar had done. Of what Jon had failed to prevent. Sir Miles speaks true, Your Grace. We must placate the Martells and ensure that we need not worry about potential allies of the Northerners coming to Eddard Stark's aid should it come to war, said Richard. Sir Kevan, Pycelle and Varys agreed with Miles and with Richard. Rhaegar turned to Jon with a sadness in his beautiful and haunting violet eyes. What do you think, Jon? He asked. Your Grace, I think that we should focus on placating Dorne and ensuring that Eddard Stark's friends and allies around us will not come to his aid, said Jon. Very well. But the longer that I leave this unanswered, the more my authority sinks and my name will be mocked continually by the Starks. And after the Starks then it will be the Arryns, the Baratheons, the Tullys before finally the Martells, said Rhaegar. We understand, Your Grace. But it would be unwise to leave your rule and the capital unsecured when there are enemies surrounding it and enemies in the shadows, said Jon. Jaime v. My lord, you have a healthy little son, said Maester Crelan as he opened the door to Melita and Jaime's bedchamber. Jaime ran inside and sat by Melita's side. Melita looked exhausted. But she was also beaming as though this was truly the happiest day of her life as she held their son in her hands. He is such a handsome little boy, said Melita as she turned to Jaime. Yes, he is, said Jaime as he looked at their son. Our son, said Melita as she reached out for Jaime's hand and helped him hold their son. He is so tiny and so fragile, he thought as he held him. Hello, little lion, he said with a tearful smile. My child. My son. I promise that I will always be there for you and for your mother. You are my family and I promise that I will always defend you and love you. Jaime felt his eyes moisten as he bent his head down to kiss his tiny forehead. Melita took him back just as Jaime started to cry. For all of father's talk, Lannisters do cry, he thought as he began to start crying. It's all right, Jaime. It is. You have me and you have our precious little boy, said Melita. I know. I know. Forgive me, Melita. I just still can't quite believe it, he said before he hugged Melita gently. I know. Now, can you pour me a cup of water, please, she asked. Of course, he said, standing up to pour some water into 2 cups. He passed one to her and Jaime lifted his one up for a toast. To our beautiful little son and to the brave mother who gave birth to him, said Jaime. To our beautiful little son and to the man who will be a good father to our beautiful little lion, said Melita. Gods, what did I do to deserve such a wonderful wife? I don't deserve her. As perfect a woman as she is, I will always still feel for Cersei. What will we call him, my love? Asked Melita. Loron. How about that? Jaime suggested. After Lannister, kings of the Rock and lords of Casterly Rock. Loron. What do you think, my little lion cub? Do you like the name Loron? She asked as their son wriggled slightly as she held him. He wriggled even more after she asked him his opinion. I think that means he likes the name Loron, said Melita with a giggle as she turned to Jaime. The door opened and in came Maester Crelan. My lord. Your lord father and your family wish to meet your son. I must examine Lady Melita, said Crelan. What? Gods, please do not let this be a repeat of what happened to mother. That was what Jaime had feared the most when Melita had told him that she carried their child. And it was what he feared as he looked at Melita and she passed Loron to him. Go, it will be fine. Introduce Loron to House Lannister and to Casterly Rock, she said with her beaming smile. Gods, please don't take her from me. I don't want Loron to grow up without a mother as I had done. Loron needs her and I need her. It'll be okay, Melita. I promise you, said Jaime as he sat by her side again and kissed her head and then her lips. I love you, Jaime, she said. Jaime managed to smile through what was left of his tears and he held her hand. I love you too, he said before he let go and stood up and turned to the door. Jaime opened the door and shut it behind him as he looked around to see Father, Tyrion, Cousin Davin, Uncle Tijet, Uncle Gerion, Aunt Jenna and Aemon. "Is that my handsome little nephew?" asked Tyrion as he stepped forwards to Jaime. "Yes. Loron, meet your Uncle Tyrion," said Jaime as he knelt down to pass Loron to Tyrion. "Loron. A good Lannister name." "Hello, Loron. Just think. 2 years from now, you'll be taller than me and we could even train together in the sparring yard. Though you'll probably be winning," said Tyrion. "Congratulations, Jaime. What of Melita? Is she well?" asked Father. "She seems to be well," said Jaime worriedly. He noticed the same look on Father. This too reminds him of when Mother died giving birth to Tyrion. "Father. Will you meet your handsome little grandson?" asked Tyrion. Father turned to Tyrion and picked up Loron from Tyrion, and Jaime saw a slight smile on Father's lips. "Maester Crelan says that he is perfectly healthy for a newborn babe," said Uncle Tijet. "Yes. A fine Lannister he will become one day," said Aemon with a stupid smile. "Something neither you nor your sons will ever be. Lannisters. You'll always be useless free weasels. Congratulations, Jaime. I look forward to teaching your little boy sparring when he is old enough to walk and swing a practice sword," said Davin as he patted Jaime on the back. Jaime, however, didn't pay attention. He focused on the door and listening to what he could overhear from his bedchambers. "Gods, spare Melita please. I adore her so much and Loron needs her if he is to grow up to be a good Lannister one day and a Lannister worthy of Casterly Rock and Father's legacy." The door opened and Jaime tried to look inside to see if Melita was in good health. "Is she well? Tell me, is she well?" Jaime demanded, panicking. "She is, my lord. She will need to be in bed for the next week, but she is well. So long as he has plenty of rest, water and healthy food, she will be in good health," said Maester Crelan. Thank the Seven, Jaime thought. Jaime took Loron in his arms and walked back inside to see Melita resting in their bed. "How are you?" asked Jaime. "I should be well." "Did Maester Crelan tell you?" she replied. "Yes, he did. I just wanted to see you." "As did little Loron," said Jaime. "Oh, come. Let me see my precious little lion cub," she said, with her arms outstretched. Jaime bent down as he passed Loron to her and she curled him up in her arms before he stood straight and turned to the door. "Where are you going?" she asked after kissing Loron's tiny head several times. "To thank the Seven at the September," said Jaime before he kissed her once more. Since joining the Kingsguard and seeing Aerys Targaryen for what he really was, Jaime had turned from the Seven. He just couldn't understand how they could allow for innocent small folk to burn to death in the throne room, and how a good and kind woman like R'hllor was raped after every burning, and how he was forced to listen. It pained Jaime that he could never defend her nor that he never did anything to stop Aerys. But on the day that Aerys died, soon after the Battle of the Bells, Jaime did nothing to save him when R'hllor strangled him. She had strangled him after he had tripped over due to his overgrown toenails and leapt onto him and began to throttle him. "Lannister. Stop her. Gut her. Gut this whore," he managed to say. "No," said Jaime before he finally died. In the Tybalt in September, Jaime knelt before the altar of the Seven. "Seven, forgive me of my lack of piety and faith towards you in the recent years. But now I do pray for myself, I pray for Melita and Loron. Mother, thank you for sparing Melita. Please gift her the strength she needs to raise Loron and to one day be Lady of Casterly Rock. Loron needs her and I will need her, then and now." Eddard 8. Eddard and Ash received Lord Gregor Forrester, Sir Wendell and Sir Willis Marndaily in his solar. "And how is the progress with the North's fleets?" asked Ash. "It goes well, my lady. Thanks to the shipwrights from Pike and a few hundred more workers coming in to build, we have managed to build another 40 in these most recent few moons," said Sir Wendell. "Excellent work, gentlemen. Once all is complete, both House Marndaily and House Forrester shall be rewarded 100,000 gold dragons each for their hard work," said Eddard. The three men blushed at the amount of coin they would be rewarded. "You honor us, my lord," said Sir Willis. "No, you honor the North with your hard work and towards a great goal," Eddard replied. The three noblemen were dismissed and Eddard looked down at the map of the North. 2 fleets. Each fleet shall be split up and docked in various ports and shipyards. But when it comes to war, each shall gather near their command post, whether Bear Island or White Harbor. A Mormont shall command the western fleet and a Mondaly shall command the eastern fleet, Eddard explained to Ash. None of this matters if we do not have the sailors to crew them, Ash pointed out. We need not worry. There will be plenty of sailors. The north has been populated even more now that more families settling and building homes at the restored castles and new castles. It's not just northerners. Families from the Riverlands, the Vale and even from Essos have come to settle in the north, said Eddard. Essos? Asked Ash. Aye. Those whom came for work when the Guild of Crafters was building the roads. Many brought their families with them to escape from poverty in the free cities from which they hailed, Eddard replied. So long as each house sends a contingent of men to make up the crews of our ships, then all should be well. They know as well as we that it is past time that the North possessed a worthy fleet. We have not possessed one ever since Brandon the Burner, Eddard continued. The bannermen of the North still must be told that we are working towards total northern independence, Ash pointed out. I know. But, I am fearful that Varys the Spider will discover our intentions and Roriger will have the excuse he has long wanted to march on the north and we would be unprepared for such a war, said Eddard. There was a knock on the door. My lord, my lady. Benjen has arrived, said Maester Jellimund. Benjen. Gods, it will be good to see him again, said Eddard as he stood up. And for him to meet his wonderful niece and nephews, said Ash as she held Eddard's hand and they walked together to the great hall. When he saw him, he could scarce recognize his younger brother. He was taller, his beard had grown stronger and he was dressed in the armor and furs of a ranger of the Night's Watch. Ned, said Benjen. Hello, brother, said Eddard before he ran at him. Eddard picked up his brother and hugged him hard. Gods, nearly 5 years. Nearly 5 years and now you come to Winterfell, said Eddard. I make no apologies of that, Ned. You see, the wildlings are amassing into an enormous army beyond the wall. They are led by a new king, called Mance Rayder, said Benjen. Is he close to attacking the wall and invading the north? Asked Eddard. Not yet. For now, he is gathering his strength and making plans. But, he is different than any other wildling kings old Nan told us about when we were boys, he explained. What makes him so different? He was once a brother of the Night's Watch. He deserted and after years of meeting different tribes, clans, peoples and groups, they have named him their king. And if what I've heard is true, he's clever and cunning, he replied. We cannot claim our freedom from the Iron Throne whilst we are threatened by the armies of the wildlings and Mance Rayder. If he invades the north, then we will fight him and together with the Night's Watch, slaughter the scum and protect the north once more from the bastards. Prydain, this is your Uncle Benjen, said Ash. Eddard turned around to see Ash gently nudging Prydain to greet Benjen. Hello, Uncle Benjen, said Prydain. Benjen beamed and knelt and shook Prydain's hand. Hello, Prydain. You've grown big and strong than the last time I saw you, he said with a warm smile. Benjen, these are Elyanar, Halric and Artos, said Ash as she held Artos and Elyanar and Halric both joined Prydain to meet Benjen. You two have been busy, haven't you? Benjen remarked before he met the rest of his nephews and his niece. Chapter 14, Startling News. Chapter Text. Interlude 3, The Evolution of Pier Francesco Favano List. Luwin Martell, Pier Francesco Favano. Gods forever damn that Lannister whore to the deepest and darkest pits of the 7 hells when her time comes. How fucking dare she steal my great-nephew's birthright? He is the rightful crown prince, not that weakling son of Cersei. Luwin Martell counted his loyalty to the king and to the royal family as his sovereign most important duty as a knight of the Kingsguard. A brotherhood he had dedicated most of his life to. But, even after his own blood which he shed and the blood of enemies he spilled in the name of Roriger and the kings before him, he was still a Martell of Sunspear and he loved his family dearly. Such a beautiful little boy, isn't he, Sir Luwin? Asked Cersei Lannister as she held Prince Jaehaerys in her arms. He has a shine to him, your grace, Luwin said through gritted teeth and keeping a hand on his sword's handle. Warrior, give me the patience to endure the insults this whore makes about my niece and her dear children. He will make a fine crown prince and a fine king one day, will he not? She asked, her poisonously false smile taunting him as she asked. Several years from now, your grace, we shall see. I would not deign to make assumptions when the prince has only just had his first name a day, Lewin replied, rolling his eyes as he said it. A pity that Princess Elia and her bastards won't be here to see Jaehaerys be crowned when the time comes. I understand that this must be painful for you, she said with false sympathy, but her eyes were full of mirth as she said it. Rhaegar, what the fuck were you thinking in allying with Tywin Lannister and marrying his poisonous bitch of a daughter? And how fucking dare you mock my great-nephew and great-niece with such talk? They are more Targaryen than your children will ever be. It may be that I will have given my life in service of my king and the royal family by then, your grace, said Lewin as he took a deep breath. Of course. Of course, said Cersei, whom seemed delighted at the prospect and that she seemed to have won. Savor that little victory, Lannister bitch, for I know whom you would prefer was the father of your children. But, your grace, perhaps a few years from now, Sir Jaime will return to the capital, alongside his wife, the Lady Melita Marbrand, and their son Loron Lannister, said Lewin. Cersei's smile vanished when he mentioned the names of Melita Marbrand and Loron Lannister. Yes, Lannister whore. I know the truth. When he first came to the White Sword Tower, your twin would wank himself off when saying your name, and he would write letters to you with such salacious contents that it could be read out in a Sunspear brothel. A Marbrand woman who is not worthy of the title of Lady of Casterly Rock. Such a family grab at power and positions beyond their station in life and refuse to let go, said Cersei angrily. One could also say the same of House Lannister, your grace, said Lewin with a victorious grin, which he couldn't hide. Cersei turned to him, all signs of her self-satisfied grin was long gone and her face was full of deadly fury. Yes, how dare I insult your house and you, whore. You who usurped my niece's rightful place as queen. You whom have never once behaved like a true queen should. R'hllor, may the Seven be good to her as she deserves as she nears her way to meet them, and Elia went out of their way to meet and greet the people of King's Landing and gift them with charity. And in these last few years, you have never once set foot outside of the Red Keep. Suddenly she started groaning. What is this, she said. What in the seven hells? She collapsed on her knees. Lewin opened the door behind him and saw two handmaidens standing idly and chatting. You too. Help the queen to her chambers. Now, he snapped. They woke from their idleness and ran inside to Cersei's aid. As much as I may despise her and all she has done to my dear and sweet niece and her beautiful little children, I swore an oath. Lewin sprinted to find the old and doddering fool that was the Grand Maester. He spotted Pycelle creepily ogling a young maidservant as she walked past with a pitcher of wine and a bowl of fruit. Grand Maester, he called. Pycelle turned to Lewin in shock. Sir Lewin, he asked. The queen. She is ill in the royal bedchambers, said Lewin. Pycelle ran faster than he had ever seen him run towards the royal bedchambers. Either examining Cersei's golden cunt is making him very excited, or he puts on an act of a harmless old man. Either way, he is Tywin Lannister's creature and would never shy from doing anything that would be of benefit to House Lannister. Had Tywin arrived at the capital to murder King Aerys, Pycelle probably would have convinced King Aerys that he was loyal only to the throne and not to himself. Pycelle arrived at the royal chambers quickly enough whilst Lewin stood guard outside. When Cersei first set foot in the Red Keep, Lewin made it no secret how he felt about her by scowling at her at every chance he could. His hatred for her only intensified after Rhaegar, at Cersei's insistence, exiled Arthur, Elia and her children. Arthur had told Oswell, Barristan and Lewin the truth of what happened. The mutual love between Arthur and Elia and how they had been discovered, and Rhaegar, in his fury, exiled them whilst Cersei whispered of how long this could have been going on and whether Rhaenys and Aegon were indeed his children. Of course my dear sister's grandchildren are Targaryens. And I'll gut any man or woman who dares claim otherwise. Sir Lewin, is the queen well? Asked Rhaegar as he came running. Queen Elia, you mean? No, how can she be well when she is not here, and neither are your children, including the rightful heir to the throne, you fucking hypocrite. You dare chastise my beloved niece for impropriety and sleeping out of her marriage bed, when you have done it twice. I don't give a shit about the doctrine of exceptionalism, it is fucking sinful to take another woman for a wife when you are already married. And then there's Lyanna Stark. I don't give a fuck if she went with you willingly, she should have known better, and so should have you. I know not, your grace. Grand Maester Pycelle is with her right now, said Luin. Luin opened the door and closed it behind Roriger after he entered. Your Grace, the Queen is with child once again. I should think that she will give birth 7 moons from now, said Pycelle. And if she becomes barren after giving birth, will you turn from your marriage vows once again, Roriger, and take someone younger and more beautiful to bed and marry her? Ashura 9. The canal is complete, asked Ned. Apparently so, my lord, said Maester Jellimund. It's finished. Gods, it feels as though it has been many years since it began. The wildfire stolen and smuggled for the construction has helped considerably. What now, Ned? Asked Ashura. We will go to Moat Cailin and inspect the canal. By the time that we arrive, the sluice gates should have been opened and the water will have filled the canal. But, we must make sure that ships can sail through the canal before we can use it, said Ned. They had left Maester Jellimund to care for their children whilst they left for Moat Cailin. Ashura had not yet been to see the now completely restored gateway to the north that was Moat Cailin. She had seen it on the journey from King's Landing to Winterfell. Though it was a foreboding and impressive sight, the signs of decay and disrepair were clear with its only 3 standing towers. Ashura was swiftly reminded of the benefits of the Valyrian roads when she saw several merchant convoys ride past using the opposite side to the one they rode on. And the journey gave Ashura and Ned a chance to meet their subjects, whom waved and greeted them. It was 2 days before they had arrived at Moat Cailin and at the Cailin Canal. Gods, it's magnificent, said Ashura. Have you ever seen anything like it? Ned asked rhetorically. House Stark will be overflowing with riches when southern houses have to pay the toll for the use of the canal. And the Ravenry will be overflowing with letters from all across the realm offering this and that for free use of the canal. When will the test begin? Asked Ashura. Once we arrive in Moat Cailin and give the command. Sir Wendell Marndaly shall sail his personal ship, the Merman's Trident, from White Harbour to Flint's Finger, Ned explained. And if all goes well, there's no telling how the northern houses and House Stark will benefit. Oh, Prydain, the kingdom you will one day rule. Feeling as though they had idled around long enough, Ned, Ashura and their entourage rode for Moat Cailin. And as they approached it, Ashura could scarce recognize it. Rather than the 3 towers that once stood there when she had journeyed north with Ned, there were now 20 towers standing tall, a strong keep, a busy town and a plentiful marketplace, as well as numerous villages built in the surrounding lands, where glass gardens had been built and the first of their crops had been planted. It's incredible, Ashura commented. Aye, it is, Ned said simply as he stared at it before turning to face Ashura. And when he is old enough, Halric will be awarded its lordship and given leave to form his own house, said Ned. Good. It is only right that Halric has a chance to shape his own destiny and become lord of his own holding and have a family at Moat Cailin. And what of Wolf's Den? Asked Ashura. To Artos. Though Lord Marndaly may try to marry him to one of his granddaughters when he does become lord, said Ned with a grin. Wyman Marndaly may be very overweight and have sausage-like fingers, but I know that he is a good man. Whilst his house is one of the very few which worship the Seven, they are a great and powerful house of the north, and Wyman Marndaly's loyalty to House Stark and to the north can never be doubted. I would definitely not object to a marriage between Artos and a granddaughter of Wyman Marndaly, so long as Artos does actually wish to marry her. I would never ever want to enforce a marriage on him which he did not wish. When they passed through the walls and rode towards the keep, Ashura saw a large and muscular woman standing in front of the keep's main doors. This woman was as big and as strong as most knights Ashura had met in tourneys in the south. Her arms were large and muscular and there was a large mace at her side. This woman, Ashura had met several times at feasts in Winterfell. Lady Mage of House Mormont, aunt of Jorah Mormont, Lord of Bear Island, whom Ned had named as Castellan of Moat Cailin until Halric was old enough. Because Jorah had no children of his own after numerous miscarriages with his late wife, he had decided that his cousin, Mage's eldest daughter Daisy, would be heiress to Bear Island. Ashura admired the Mormonts of Bear Island for their hardiness in times of war and the fact that women were given leave to fight as the men were and had the same rights as men did, due to numerous Ironborn raids on their home for centuries ever since Bear Island was taken by the Starks from the Ironborn. Ned. Ash. Good to see you here, she bellowed with her loud and hard voice. Send her against Drold Hightower, and even the White Bull would struggle against her as she blooded him and bruised him with her punches and her mace. And you also, Mage. How are things here? Ned asked as he and Ashura climbed down from their horses. Aye, things are good. And everyone is drunk on excitement at seeing Wendell Marndaly sail the canal, she replied. We included, Lady Mormont, said Ashura. Aye, I should think so, Ash. We haven't had great structures built in the north like this ever since Brandon the Builder built the wall, said Mage. Whilst Ned and Mage spoke, Ashura glanced around the 20 towers of Moat Cailin and at the keep and town. Halric shall have a fine place to call home when he is of age. But it will be his responsibility and his own family's responsibility to safeguard the north from Roriger and the armies of the south from invading the north. From the keep, Ned, Ash and Mage looked down from the balcony after a signal fire had been lit from atop the keep. Give it 20 minutes or so, and we'll see Wendell Marndaly and his ship sail. Or we'll watch it crash into the rocks, said Mage. Let's just hope and pray to the old gods for the former, shall we, Mage? Ashura's prayers were answered when she saw the merman's trident, undamaged, sail the canal. Ashura could hear her own heartbeat as she watched it sail safely through the canal, its crow's nest just 20 feet below the bridge connecting the rest of the north to Moat Cailin. Ashura was worried when the merman's trident sailed out of sight. How will we know if it is a success? Asked Ashura. Lysa Flint will light a signal fire from Saltspear Keep. The men on the roof of the keep here will be able to see it. If the flame is put out and then relit again, then it was a success. If it is not put out and relit, then it was not, Ned explained. It was another 20 minutes before a cry was heard from the roof of the keep. Ned stood up from his chair and called back up the soldiers up top. What can you see from up there? Ned shouted. A fire from Saltspear Keep, my lord. They've just put it out and relit all over again, he replied. He's done it. He successfully sailed the canal, the first to do it. John 9. Come, my prince. You must be strong. Your mother would want to see you tall and strong like a true Targaryen dragon, sympathetically said Jon. Prince Viserys only nodded through his tears whilst he held Princess Daenerys' hand. They walked together to their mother, Queen Dowager R'hllor, laying on the altar in the Great September of Baelor. Goodbye, mother, said Viserys as he cried before kissing his mother's cheek. Goodbye, mother, said Daenerys, she managed to say before hugging her mother gently before bursting into tears. Jon turned to Ser Barristan and Ser Lynn standing by the front doors. Prince Viserys hugged his younger sister as they both cried. Ser Barristan, escort Prince Viserys and Princess Daenerys back to Maegor's Holdfast, please, said Jon. Of course, my lord hand, said Ser Barristan. Why in the seven hells is that child raper even in the Kingsguard? Did Cersei not think that he would not target her own children? Scum such as he only deserve mention in the White Book when they are slain by true, honorable and chivalrous knights of the Kingsguard. Roriger stood just in front of his mother, staring at her in silence. Roriger, I am so sorry, my love. She was the bravest and strongest woman in the realm. I only wish your last memories of her weren't of her admonishing you. After Ser Barristan escorted Roriger's brother and sister from the Great September, Jon walked until he was standing next to Roriger. I am so sorry, Roriger. She was truly a rare woman, said Jon. To have endured her husband as she did, takes an incredibly rare inner strength and resolve. Yes. But, was she right? Concerning what? Asked Jon. Was she right to shout at me for what happened with Lyanna Stark? And for exiling Elia and calling her children bastards? She insisted that they were her grandchildren and loved them dearly, and yet I was too stubborn to say otherwise, said Roriger. To admit when one is in the wrong in a matter such as this, requires a humility that not many possess, not even kings. She loved you, Roriger. For every day that your father was king, you gave her hope that House Targaryen was not filled with madmen and lunatics. She loved you, Viserys and Daenerys very dearly. No matter what you did, she would always love you, Jon assured him. Roriger sighed as he looked at R'hllor's face. She asked that I bring Elia, Rhaenys and Aegon here for the funeral. But I didn't. I was still too angry, said Roriger. If you had, it may have helped heal relations with Dorne and restored Aegon to his rightful place as crown prince. There will always be a chance to start anew, Roriger. But only you can decide when, said Jon. Roriger nodded and turned to Jon and outstretched his arms and pulled Jon in. Thank you, Jon. For being here. It takes away so many burdens hurting my back and my soul, said Roriger. I would do anything for you, Roriger. I love you, Jon thought as he hugged Roriger dearly, but was tempted to kiss him. The temptation was gone suddenly. Fuck. Why is my cock so erect right now? Jon broke from the hug just as Cersei arrived to be by Roriger's side, holding Prince Jaehaerys' hand. How are you, my love? She asked sweetly. I'll be better once this is all over, he admitted. As will we all, Roriger, she said. And how is the prince, my queen? Asked Jon. He is behaving very well, as a prince should, aren't you, Jay? She asked. The boy wrapped his tiny hands around his mother's leg rather than look at his father or at Jon. And he showed no sadness at the death of his wonderful grandmother. Jon glanced around whilst Roriger asked Cersei about the child growing inside her. He noticed Varys in the corner, gesturing to him. He wouldn't be here unless it was important. Jon walked as swiftly as he could to Varys, standing by the altar to the stranger. Is something wrong, Lord Varys? Asked Jon. I wouldn't say wrong, Lord Hand. But I thought that both you and the king should know, he said. Know what? Asked Jon. Eddard Stark has finished the Kaelin Canal and tested its capabilities when he sent Wendell Marndaly on his ship from White Harbor to Flint's Finger and back to White Harbor once more. It was all a success. Eddard Stark now controls perhaps the greatest way to guarantee him endless riches in Westeros. But has that been his endgame all along? Or is there something I am not seeing? Was there anything else? Asked Jon. Yes, Lord Hand. He has sent ravens to all rulers of the free cities and all corners of the Seven Kingdoms, informing all lords of his construction of the Kaelin Canal and where to find it on a map. He's also written that a toll will be imposed for all ships intending to sail through the canal, and they have watchtowers and sluice gates preventing any who haven't paid from using it, he explained. Yes, that will definitely guarantee House Stark a future as one of the wealthiest houses in Westeros. But, by doing this, he is saying that Roriger had no part in it, which isn't treasonous, but does undermine his authority. Thank you, Lord Varys. I shall inform his grace, said Jon before turning to see Roriger just as Cersei and Jaehaerys walked away. Chapter 15, The Crown of Winter. Chapter text. Eddard 9. My lords, I feel as though it were time that we adapted to how we fight wars. The rebellion has made me see this, and I think it is time we change it all, said Eddard as he stood in front of them in the Great Hall. Change it? Why should we, Ned? We killed many a southern fool in the rebellion. Rickard Karstark said proudly, at which many shouted aye. Aye, that cannot be denied, Lord Karstark. But, if we hope to be any match for a southern army should another war come that involves the north, then I want us to be far ahead of the southern fuckers, said Eddard. These changes you speak of, Lord Stark. What are they? Asked Roose Bolton. Many of you will have heard that over a year ago, I had bought 1,000 Dornish sand steeds from House Dane to interbreed with our own northern horses. And it has worked. The results speak for themselves, for the offspring have shown that not only are they hardy and strong and can endure the winter, they are fast and agile and can traverse snow-filled plains in the rills and in the Gift. He paused to allow the bannerman of the north to consider this before he continued. And so, with this in mind, we can use these horses to train soldiers to be mounted archers. The Dornish used horse archers to great effect when resisting Targaryen invasions. If it worked well for them, why should we not be able to do the same? Moving on, we need to focus on mobility and ensure that our armies can march fast over any terrain. One such example would be that when Tywin Lannister marched his army of 20,000 to King's Landing to join with Roriger, it took him an entire moon to march the distance from Casterly Rock to King's Landing. A whole moon. We can do better than that, said Eddard. Eddard's words had effect on the bannermen. They understood what he was saying and that there was much that they could do to improve the standard of their armies. When war comes with the southern fucks, we must have the upper hand. We will be outnumbered 2-1, if not more. Thankfully Roriger's stupidity has angered many lords across the realm, especially those of Dorne. The great Yonumber was the first to make his voice heard. My lords and ladies. I agree. If war comes with the southern shits, I don't want to waste away in a tent, hungry for battle with the cunts. I want to fight and be there slaughtering the pricks without any fucking hesitation. And as for the horse archers, if it makes them bleed, why the fuck not? The rest of the bannermen, one by one, agreed to Eddard's plans. "Lord Stark, do you feel that war will come soon?" asked Jorah Mormont. As he looked around and saw the looks on the faces of his bannermen, Eddard realized that now was the time. He glanced at Ash and she nodded. I do. The fact that we haven't pledged fealty to the Iron Throne won't have gone unnoticed, Lord Mormont. The Southerners are probably looking for any excuse to send their armies to attack and enforce our submission to their fucking ugly iron chair, said Eddard. But, my lords, I think that now is the time for things to truly change in the North. These last several years have been beneficial for the North. We are stronger, wealthier, and now we can call ourselves self-reliant. But there is something else we should be calling ourselves. Free. Many have come to this conclusion. They either feel that the North should be independent, have guessed my ultimate intentions, or both, Ned thought when he saw the looks on the faces of many of his bannermen. The only reason why Torrhen Stark bowed to the Targaryen conquerors was because he feared their dragons after the Field of Fire. But where are the dragons now? Dead. They call Rhaegar the last dragon. But he's naught but a fucking maggot. So why shouldn't we rule ourselves again? Why should the North continue to submit to the fucking idiot Southerners when they've made it fucking clear, time and time again, that they don't care for us? They think of us as savages and barbarians. Why should they force us to feed them double taxes when they've insulted us and act as though we were in the wrong? I lost my brother, my sister and my father to fucking Southern arrogance and stupidity. But I refuse to let more Northerners die for the ambitions or the arrogance of another Southern king. I say we should be free. I say that the time has come that we bleed the Southern cunts and make them suffer for every wrong they have inflicted on the North. What say you, Northerners? They shouting, punching the air with their fists. Fucking Southern shits. Inbred dragon fucks. We'll make them suffer. We'll free the North from these cunts. Eddard nodded as they made their voices and opinions clear. So be it, my lords and ladies. When I am sure that we are ready for war and ready to reclaim our freedom, I will contact the Company of the Rose and bring them to the North. And then we shall tell the Southerners that we are free and refuse to bow the fucking Targaryen shits ever again. They cheered, roared and clanged their drinks on their tables. May the old gods watch over us. Interlude 4, peak character face exhaling #Vikings #Viking seeded #Svein edit #FYP TikTok. Veon cool, David Pierce. Perhaps, Lord and Lady Stark will allow Jane to grow up beside Lyanna, said Sigfrith. I don't see why not. Lord and Lady Stark have no reason to say no. And Lyanna will need friends growing up, said Veon as he and his wife looked at Jane playing with the doll Veon had purchased for her. Now that Lady Stark was with child once more, Veon was wondering if it would be a daughter rather than a son, for he hoped that his daughter Jane would make friends whilst growing up besides the Stark children. A knock on the door turned Veon's attention away from his daughter. Enter, he said. It was a newly employed maid called Ros. Pardon, Master Veon, but Lord Stark summons you to his solar, she said. Very good. Thank you, Ros, he said. Ros took her leave and Veon turned to Sigfrith. I won't be long. Lord Stark shouldn't have need of me for too long, he assured her. All the same, don't be too long. Jane needs her father around, said Sigfrith before she kissed Veon. Don't worry. He's a good man, he'll understand that I must care for you and for Jane, said Veon before he gave Jane her newest doll. She cooed with excitement with the new doll and started waving it around in the air as though it were an eagle. Thank you, father, she said with a sweet smile. Veon beamed at his beloved daughter before kissing her on her head before taking his leave from his family. Veon left his chambers and walked as fast as he could to Lord Stark's solar. Arriving there, he saw that Maester Jellimund had just left and the door was open. Veon. Come in, please, said Lord Stark. Of course, my lord, said Veon. Veon entered the solar whilst Lady Stark sat down and was drinking a herbal concoction given by Maester Jellimund. Veon was all too familiar with the medicine. Sigfrith had drunk plenty of it when she was carrying Jane. An unpleasant tasting medicine, Lady Stark? Veon asked. It is, Veon. Did Sigfrith drink it when she carried Jane? She asked. She did. Said that it tasted like roasted tree bark, he replied. Well, she was right there, she said as her beautiful face screwed at drinking the medicine. Veon turned to Lord Stark, whom had finished reading a letter from Lord Donal of House Poole, Veon's older brother, whom was knighted by Lord Marndaley after the war for saving Sir Willie's life after the Battle of Stony September. House Poole was a house of minor nobility that had no claims to any epic heroes, legendary warriors, good lords or great kings. The men of House Poole had often served as retainers, masters of arms, stewards or guard captains. But after the construction of Wolf's Inlet, a port town constructed on the northeastern coast in the Gift, Lord Stark had awarded the town's lordship to Donal, giving House Poole a larger place in the world. And for that, House Stark would always have the loyalty of Veon. "You summoned me, my lord?" asked Veon. Why was he reading a letter from Donal? Has something happened to him? "I did, Veon. Now, I was visiting the crypts earlier this very morning and I saw that after last night's windstorm, a great deal of clutter and refuse was lying around on the grounds. Make sure that it is cleaned up as soon as possible." "Of course, my lord," said Veon. Veon took his leave and found 20 servants whom had finished breaking their fast in the servants' quarters and were now chatting or sitting in idleness. "You men, with me. Bring brushes and sacks. There is a lot of cleaning to be done at the crypts," said Veon. The men finished their minor activities and went to find brushes and sacks whilst Veon walked on his own to the crypts. Looking around he saw what Lord Stark had meant. Shards of broken glass from bottles, half-eaten food and even chunks of melded clay, presumably from mugs. Who left all this junk lying around? Where are we, King's Landing? And how strong was this wind that it blew in all of this flotsam and jetsam? The servants he ordered to come arrived, bringing with them a brush and a sack each. "Clear the crypts as fast as you can," he ordered. But before they could begin, he continued. "But go in pairs. The crypts are very dangerous. It's very cold and dark down there and if you don't know the crypts well enough you could find yourself lost and no way out," he cautioned. They did as he ordered and whilst they begun, Veon started lighting the torches held by their bronze sconces to light their way. As they worked away, Veon started exploring for he rarely had the chance to admire the kings in the north or the lords of Winterfell after Torrhen Stark bent the knee in the face of Aegon the Conqueror, his army and his dragons. Veon found himself at the statue of said king. "I wonder, what might have happened had you not bent the knee, King Torrhen? Would the north still be free but facing invasion after invasion by the Targaryen armies? Or would House Stark and many other noble northern houses been massacred like they had massacred the nobility and royalty of the Westerlands and the Reach at the Field of Fire?" Veon was about to turn around and continue his exploring around the crypt when he realized that there was something on the sole of his boot. He raised a brow as he held up his leg up by his knee to the light created by a nearby torch in its sconce. He frowned when he saw it was what remained of an apple. "By the gods, if there's one thing I hate, it's people who waste food. There are millions of people whom have the misfortune to be homeless across the world and by discarding food that you don't want to eat, you are unknowingly murdering a homeless child begging for scraps off of a table." He picked away at the apple from his boot's sole until it was partially gone. To make sure that it was all off, he repeatedly kicked the paving slab in front of him. But, to his surprise, after kicking it a few times, the slab kicked up and landed just in front of the statue of Torrhen Stark. Veon bent down to pick up the slab and put it back where it belonged, until he saw a chest. He looked at the slab and then at the chest again. Was this slab covering this chest? Veon looked around and went to the king preceding Torrhen Stark, Bern Stark. He tried picking up the slab just below him. It was to no avail, it was just not lifting up. Veon tried a few more times with other kings in the north before realizing that it was only with Torrhen Stark. Veon returned to the statue of Torrhen Stark and lifted the chest out of its hole. It was dusty and he coughed as he put it down on the ground next to him. Veon spat dust out of his mouth and wiped his eyes with his sleeves and blinked several times to get it all out. He reached for his water skin attached to his belt and drank greedily from it. "Gods, I hate dust." He spat a small amount out and drank the rest before he opened the chest. As he reached for the chest's lid, a few of the servants were turning the corner and into this part of the crypts. He opened it and his eyes opened wide at what he saw. "By the gods and every heart tree and godswood in the world. Master Veon. Is that you? Is everything okay?" asked one of them. Veon stood up as he stared at the contents of the chest. He turned to the servant who spoke. Jack Ben, isn't it? Veon asked. Aye, Master Veon, he replied with a nod. Well, Jack Ben, I am just going to Lord and Lady Stark. Resume as you were, he said. Aye, Master Veon, Jack Ben said. Veon closed the chest and ran as fast as he could out of the crypts until he could feel the cool air of Winterfell kissing the sweat on his face, neck and hands. He panted as he opened the chest once again to make sure that he wasn't daydreaming. I wasn't imagining it, he realized before he closed the chest and resumed running back to Lord Stark's solar. He found it and urgently knocked on the door. Who is it? Asked Lord Stark. It is me, my lord. I have something very important to show you, he said. Oh, come in, Veon, said Lord Stark. Veon opened the door and saw Lord Stark hovering over Lady Stark as she rested her back on her chair. Is everything all right, Veon? Asked Lady Stark. Aye, my lady. But whilst the men were clearing the crypts, I found this hidden by the statue of Torrhen Stark, he said, before opening the chest to let them see. Lord Stark couldn't believe what he saw. Ned, are they what I think they are? Asked Lady Stark. Aye, Ash. The crowns of the king and queen in the north, said Lord Stark as Veon placed the chest on Lord Stark's desk. Lord Stark picked up the crown of the king in the north, a hammered bronze circlet with 9 black iron spikes, shaped like long swords, surmounting it and decorated with runes of the first men. And then he picked up the queen's crown, a hammered bronze circlet also decorated with runes but with 9 bronze images, shaped like heart trees, surmounting it. Where did you say you found this? Asked Lady Stark. The slab just below the tomb of Torrhen Stark, my lady. I had been trying to clean some half-eaten apple off my boot, and I tried to use that slab to do so, but in doing so the slab came loose and below where it was, I found this very chest, Veon explained. What amazing discoveries have been made, and by accident too, in these past few years. Lord Stark exclaimed as he carefully examined both crowns. I thought that the crowns were submitted to Aegon the Conqueror, asked Lady Stark. He must have given him false ones, knowing that one day, a time would come when the North would be free of the dragons, Lord Stark reasoned. Elia 6. So many things have happened in the North ever since I was last here, Elia thought as she sat with Oberyn, Ellaria, Rhaenys and Aegon in their wheelhouse, gifted to them by Lord Wyman Mondaly. Elia couldn't help but stare in amazement at the Valyrian roads that stretched from White Harbor to Winterfell. Riding on these roads is certainly far more pleasant than riding on the roads in Sunspear, Oberyn commented. Mother, why is it so cold? Asked Aegon. Because we are in the north, my little dragon. Now, wrap your furs up to keep warm, said Elia. But Uncle Oberyn isn't, Aegon pointed out, gesturing to Oberyn, who was kept warm by his beloved paramour next to him. That's because Uncle Oberyn is quite stupid, said Elia before she playfully slapped the back of her brother's head. She's right, little Aegon. Your Uncle Oberyn gets up to all sorts of stupid things to keep warm. Especially with me, Ellaria commented with a beaming smile at Aegon. Oberyn merely grinned at what Ellaria was hinting whilst Elia rolled her eyes. Not in front of my son and daughter. They are 5 and 8 respectively, and they don't need to hear such filth from your paramour or you, brother. I wonder what it would take to have these roads built in Dorne, asked Elia. Coin that Doran doesn't have in such a great supply, Oberyn pointed out. Perhaps the Northerners can lend a hand. Ellaria suggested. I don't know. We would have to have lengthy talks with Ned and Ash for any of that to happen, said Elia. Elia looked out of the window again and could see a familiar sight. Winterfell. Gods, I've forgotten just how beautiful it is. We're here. Winterfell, said Elia with a smile. I hope it is warm inside their great keep, said Oberyn. Oh, it will be, brother. They have piping connected to hot water springs. It's so warm that it reminded me of autumn days in the marches, said Elia. A party of Stark soldiers came riding towards their escort of Martell and Mondaly soldiers. As they did so, Elia noticed something curious about the horses used by the household cavalry of House Stark. Brother, you're an expert on horses, aren't you? Elia asked. I am, yes, said Oberyn as he scrambled to her to see what she was looking at. Those aren't local. Those are Dornish sand steeds, but with very hairy northern hooves, he said immediately upon looking at them. What are they doing here? Ellaria asked. Something I shall be asking Ned and Ashura about, Elia said. They passed through the gates into the Winter City. It was bustling with activity, markets seemed plentiful and many lit fire braziers which people used to keep warm. Some were even using these braziers to cook themselves some food. Gods, that's making me hungry, Elia thought before they entered through into the courtyard of the great keep. Standing there to welcome them were Ned, Ash and their many children. Elia noticed that Ash was also heavy with child, evidenced by the growing bump protruding from her dress. 4 children and a 5th on the way. They've been very busy. As the wheelhouse came to a stop, a middle-aged knight opened the door and offered his hand to Elaria first, as she was the closest to the door he had opened. Elaria climbed out, wrapping her furs closely around her as she stepped onto the ground. Elia and Rhaenys were helped out next whilst Oberyn patted Aegon on the back as the two climbed out last. Gods, even after giving birth to 4 children, Ashura is still so beautiful, Elia admired as her old friend held her youngest son's hand. Princess Elia, Prince Oberyn, welcome to Winterfell, said Ned, bowing his head to them. The pleasure is all ours, Lord Stark, said Oberyn, shaking hands with him before going to Ashura. Now, how is this beautiful woman of Dawn doing so far from Starfall in a place like Winterfell? Oberyn asked after kissing Ashura's hand. I'm happy, Prince Oberyn. And been doing very well, said Ashura. So I can see, Oberyn replied with a cheeky grin as he glanced down at her belly and at her children. Elia met with Ashura and hugged her. Gods, Ash, I've missed you so. Why haven't you come to Sunspear? Asked Elia. I've wanted to. We both have, but our duties prevent us from leaving Winterfell most of the time, said Ashura. And what duties they've been. Turning the North into a true power to be reckoned with, though there will still be some idiots in the realm who will still think of the North as a land of savages and barbarians. At first Elia thought that they were going into the Great Keep, but Ashura showed them to the first keep. We've renovated and restored it to house our guests. Mostly Bannerman, Ashura explained. Entering inside the first keep, Elia smirked when she saw the surprise on the faces of Oberyn and Elaria. You weren't lying. I thought you were just exaggerating, said Elaria. No, it came as a surprise to me when I first came here, said Elia. And how does one keep warm here, Ashura? Oberyn asked. All manners of things. But most of all, one doesn't have so many children by huddling close to a fireplace, Ashura replied. Ha! Now there's the Ashura Dane I remember. Oberyn chuckled with a devious grin. Ash, I've been meaning to ask. We noticed that our Stark escort rode on horses that looked like Dornish sand steeds, but with furry feet, said Elia. Very well noticed, El. Yes, less than 2 years ago, we bought 1,000 sand steeds from Starfall to interbreed with northern horses and create a breed that is fast, agile, strong, hardy and can traverse through snowy plains and hills, said Ashura. So, where are Miria and Lara? Asked Ashura. Miria has married Quentin Corgyle and Lara married Franklin Fowler, Elia explained as they arrived at the bedchambers. Ashura pointed at what looked like the biggest one and said, that's for you, my friend. That was formerly the chambers of kings in the north when they called the first keep home. Elia lay down in her bed and was joined by Rhaenys and Aegon. What do you think of here? She asked her children. It's so beautiful here, mother, said Rhaenys, whom started staring out of the window at the snowflakes. Just as Elia stood up to join Rhaenys and Aegon as they stared out at the snowflakes, a knock could be heard from the door. Enter, said Elia. Elia recognized him as the steward of Winterfell when he opened the door. My princess, Lord and Lady Stark invite you to dine with them for lunch in 10 minutes, he said with a bow. Thank you. And what of my children? For now, they are invited to play with Lord and Lady Stark's children in the sparring yard, he said whilst pointing at the other window. Elia looked down from that window and saw Prydain, Halric and Lyanna Stark having a snowball fight. Would you like that, my little dragons? To play in the snow with the Starks? She asked. Yes, mother, said Aegon. Yes, please, mother, said Rhaenys. Elia left her chambers with Rhaenys and Aegon and were joined by Oberyn and Elaria. They have some very good brothels from what I heard the last time that I was here. If you are bored, Elia whispered to them to avoid Rhaenys and Aegon listening in. Is that so, sister? Well, perhaps we shall look around and pay a little visit. After all, Ashura did say that she and Eddard didn't have so many children by keeping close to a fireplace, said Oberyn. Elia shook her head at her brother's antics before she took Aegon and Rhaenys outside and sat alongside Ash. Both beamed as they watched Egon and Rhaenys join the snowball fight and play with the Stark children. I did dream of my children and Ashura's children playing together a long time ago. Now that has finally come true. But will the Seven answer my prayers? Will they give the chance for Egon to reclaim his rightful place as Crown Prince and not Cersei's son Jaehaerys? Chapter 16, An Unexpected Turn. Chapter Text. Ashura X. A moon after Elya's departure from Winterfell, Ashura had given birth to a daughter, whom she and Ned had named Deanna. "Mama, why won't she play dolls with me?" asked Lyanna when she came to Ashura with 2 dolls in her hands. "She's sleeping, my sweet. She needs to be rested before she can play," said Ashura as she sat by Deanna's bassinet. "But she was sleeping just after I broke my fast," Lyanna pointed out. "Yes, but she is much younger than you, Lyanna. She needs to grow before she can play with you," Ashura said with a smile. She put her hand on her shoulder as she involuntarily lowered her hands holding her dolls. "Now, why don't you play with Jane Poole? I'm sure that she would want a friend like you to play with dolls." "She is my friend. But Deanna is my sister," said Lyanna. "Give it time, Lyanna. I'm sure she will be happy to play with you when you grow up," Ashura assured her. Lyanna left to go and find Jane Poole. Ashura liked how the 2 girls were similar to the extent that they did almost everything together. As she looked down at Deanna sleeping, Ashura thought back to when Elia had visited. Ashura was so happy to see Elia again and to see Rhaenys and Egon grown up. She had been informed by the brothel, the Blue Winter Rose, that 2 of their employees were expecting a child, so soon after a lengthy time spent with Oberyn and Ellaria. Knowing that he did the right thing to bring all of his bastard daughters home with him to Sunspear, Ashura had written to Oberyn of this and that there was a chance that he was the father of both. He had replied that he would come to Winterfell once he had heard that the mothers had both given birth. Asterisk. Elia had said how she was so happy at seeing their children play together whilst they were in Winterfell. "Perhaps one day we might share a grandchild," Elia suggested. "Perhaps. But, Ned and I have decided that our children should choose whom they marry. Ned and I married out of love, so it wouldn't seem right if our children didn't have the chance to do the same," said Ashura. Elia beamed and said, "It truly does lift my heart to see you and Ned so happy together. I always prayed that one day you would meet the right man. And meet him, I have, and we are now married and have 4 beautiful children and another on the way." "And are you happy?" Ashura asked. "I am. Rhaenys and Egon keep me happy, in spite of all that happened with Rhaegar and with your brother," Elia said after some hesitation. Ashura knew of how they felt for each other when she was Elia's lady-in-waiting in King's Landing and of seeing Arthur pine after her in silence. "Have you not seen each other?" Ashura asked. "No. Rhaegar forbid it. And Varys has spies everywhere in the kingdoms. But very few in the north, it would seem," said Elia. "Very few in the north. We had no idea." "Interesting. How did you come upon this?" Ashura asked. "Doran has spies too. He discovered that Varys and Jon Connington have been frustratingly trying to find out whatever secrets they can about you and your husband and if you are up to treason," said Elia. "Varys and Jon Connington. That spy from when Elia was last here, he must have been Jon Connington's spy. He knows nothing of espionage in comparison to a shadowy spider such as Varys. But it is good that they have very few spies in the north. It keeps our ultimate plans safe." Ashura had told Ned all of what Elia had told her and Ned agreed with her that this was good news and that it mean everything for the final stages of gaining freedom for the north. And when the north is free, Rhaegar can suffer for all the insults and humiliation he has dealt on to Elia, Arthur, Rhaenys, Egon and House Stark, Ned said. Asterisk. "And how are my wife and my beautiful daughter?" asked Ned as he entered Deanna's chambers. "Well, though our other daughter was upset that Deanna was sleeping rather than wanting to play with her," said Ashura before they kissed as he sat next to her. "She has Jane for a friend, she isn't starved of playmates. And Roderick's daughter, Beth, can join them once she is old enough," said Ned. "What she wants is a sister to play with rather than just a friend. I had wanted the same, but Illyria was too young back then. And when I was sent to the Water Gardens, I finally got what I wanted when I met Elia," said Ashura. "Did you tell her?" Ned asked. "About our plans?" asked Ashura. "I said Ned. No, I didn't. I think she might have tried to persuade me to discourage the notion for fear of war, said Ashura. War is inevitable. But at least this way, the North will survive and endure and prosper, whereas the Southerners will not lord over us and steal what we earn and work hard to make, said Ned. Do you think that Rhaegar wants a war? Ashura asked. Rhaegar, Jon Connington, Tywin Lannister. They all want to show that their power is unbroken, and they will probably see the North as their prime target. All that they need is a just reason for it. And when they have it, they won't waste time. They'll gather all allies that they can, and that is when we will surprise them. Eddard X. Ready. We are almost ready. Another half year, perhaps, and then we can regain our freedom and throw the fucking tyrant Southerners from the North and live how we were always meant to live, free of the Southern rules, the Southern way of life, and no fucking inbred dragons to tell us what we must and mustn't do. In his solar, Eddard had finished reading all of the reports brought to him by Maester Jellimund before he looked at the map of the North. Our fleets are nearing completion. 190 warships and nearly twice as many transport ships. That should be enough to counter the Royal Fleet, the fleets of Lannisport, Gulltown, Old Town, the Arbor and Dragonstone. And the Iron Fleet, if they do decide to follow behind Rhaegar's rule. Quarian Greyjoy is known to be a forward thinker as opposed to blindly following the old Ironborn way of life. Eddard felt proud that he had accomplished so much already in the less than 10 years that he had been Lord of Winterfell. But now, he was certain, the time had come for the North to be free and for Rhaegar, House Targaryen and all damned and cruel southern houses to suffer for their sins and for their unwarranted transgressions against House Stark and the North. My lord, begging your pardon, said Maester Jellimund, knocking on the door. Enter, Jellimund, said Eddard. He entered the solar and Eddard saw he was holding a letter. My lord, a raven just arrived, from Castle Black, he said, before passing it to Eddard. Eddard broke the seal and opened the scroll, immediately recognizing the writing as that of Benjen's hand. Ned. The last I was in Winterfell, I told you of Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, and that there would come a day when he would march for the wall. That time is now. He marches for the wall with an army of 100,000 wildlings from all corners of the lands beyond the wall. We are heavily outnumbered, with 500 brothers in Castle Black, and 1,500 split between the Shadow Tower, Eastwatch by the Sea, Long Barrow, Icemark, Greyguard, Stony Door and Queensgate. Please, the North must help. If we fall, then the wildlings will flood the North and thousands of Northerners will die before the wildlings reach Moat Cailin. Yours faithfully, Benjen Stark, Ranger of Castle Black. We cannot abandon the Night's Watch in their hour of need. Helping them is more important than fighting the Southerners. Eddard put down the letter as he took a few deep breaths. Gods, I pray that we can hold the wall and stop Mance Rayder. Maester Jellimund. Call the banners. Write letters to all of the bannermen. Tell them of the contents of this letter and tell them that we shall link up our armies at Last Hearth, said Eddard as he pointed at Last Hearth on the map. Yes, my lord, said Jellimund. Eddard found Sir Roderick, whom had just finished sparring with Prydain, Halric and Artos for the noon. Sir Roderick, Eddard called. Yes, my lord, asked Sir Roderick. Have the army of Winterfell assembled? The wildlings are amassing and marching on the wall with an army of 100,000, Eddard explained. At once, my lord, said Sir Roderick before turning. Eddard found Ash teaching Lyanna, Jane and Beth how to sew. She saw how he looked at her and she stood up. Rilla will show you the rest, my dears, said Ash with a sweet smile before her handmaiden Rilla sat down with them. What is it? What's wrong? Asked Ash. Benjen sent a raven. The Night's Watch are under attack. Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, is marching an army of 100,000 on the wall, said Eddard before his attention was drawn to all of the ravens from the Ravenry in the Great Keep were flying in all directions. And the North goes to help? Asked Ash. Aye, we must, said Eddard. How many can the North send to fight right now? Ash asked. 25,000 I think. If we had been more prepared, we could have sent 40,000 fighting men to Castle Black, said Eddard. And our plans wait until this is all over. They must wait, of course, said Eddard, at which Ash nodded in agreement. How long will this take? Ash asked. I know not. If we can draw them out just as they camp a few leagues in front of the wall, then we can crush them and end the war and the threat they pose for good. If it goes as I plan, then it shouldn't take longer than 6 moons, said Eddard. Promise me that you will be careful, said Ash as she held his hands. I don't go yet, Ash. But, I promise. I promise I shall be careful. Nothing will keep me from your arms or our children, said Eddard before he pulled her in for a passionate kiss. Chapter 17, History I. Chapter Text. Excerpt from an early history of King Roriger's reign by Grand Maester Pycelle. His Grace, King Roriger, the first of his name, began with the end of perhaps one of the bloodiest wars in the history of Westeros. What has been named as Robert's Rebellion after the leader of the rebellion, Robert of the House Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End and Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. It began when Crown Prince Roriger had taken the Lady Lyanna of House Stark for a lover and had absconded with her to the Tower of Joy in Dorne, for she had been driven into his arms by an unwanted betrothal to Robert Baratheon, forced onto her by her Lord Father, Rickard Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. But in taking their love to Dorne, her disappearance so soon after the wedding of her eldest brother Brandon of House Stark to Lady Catelyn of House Tully in Riverrun had been mistaken by many as kidnapping. Noble Crown Prince Roriger was falsely accused of having kidnapped her. Brandon Stark and Catelyn Tully had ridden to King's Landing demanding that Roriger face him, shouting the words, "Roriger, come out and die. Coward. Raper." This very serious threat to the Crown Prince was answered with his arrest and that of Catelyn Tully. Rickard Stark had come to King's Landing to answer for the treasons committed by his son and daughter. But King Aerys, the second of his name, was known as the Mad King, and he had delighted in executing the enemies and traitors of the realm with wildfire. And that is what happened. In what was supposed to be a trial by combat for his son's innocence, Rickard Stark was executed, burned to death by wildfire, and Brandon Stark was forced to watch as his father was burned to death and his beloved wife Catelyn, whom carried his child, was executed by strangulation before he too was executed in this way. In response, the armies of the north, led by Rickard Stark's second son, Eddard, marched on the south to fight the crown for the unpleasant executions of his father, his brother and his good sister. Robert Baratheon gathered the armies of the Stormlands to march and fight loyalists to the crown in the Stormlands. Jon Arryn, whose wards were Eddard and Robert, joined in the rebellion and fought against loyalists to the crown in the Vale. And as for the Riverlands, Lord Hoster of House Tully called the banners of the Riverlords in memory of his murdered daughter. After winning a lucky victory at the Battle of Summerhall against loyalist armies, Robert Baratheon marched for the Reach to get onto the best road to join with his allies at Riverrun. But he was intercepted by the brave armies of Lord Mace of House Tyrell and Lord Randall of House Tarly. Robert Baratheon was defeated at the Battle of Ashford and was forced to rout to the Riverlands. Meanwhile, Jon Arryn had long since defeated the loyalists to the crown at the siege of Gulltown. Leading the armies of the Vale, Jon Arryn marched for the Riverlands to join with the Stark and Tully armies at Riverrun and planning to join with Robert Baratheon, not knowing that brave Lord John of House Connington was marching to fight them. John Connington led what was left of the Stormland Loyalist army, an army of the Crown Lands and an army of loyalists from the Riverlands. They marched for the Riverlands town of Stony September to crush Robert Baratheon after discovering that that was where he was hiding from them. Crown Prince Roriger was horrified by all of the events that had transpired for what he considered an innocent affair with his beloved lover Lyanna. He had sent word to Great Lord Tywine of House Lannister, promising a royal marriage between he and Lady Cersei of House Lannister, known as the Light of the West, for famous to all the world was her great beauty. Lord Tywine, a wise and great man, accepted the Crown Prince's offer without hesitation, for so honored was he that Crown Prince Roriger would marry his daughter, in spite of already being married to Princess Elia of House Martell. But the doctrine of exceptionalism, written by King Jaehaerys, the first of his name, legalizes the men of House Targaryen to take 2 wives. Lord Tywine marched an army of 20,000 to King's Landing to join with the loyalist forces, including a Dornish army of 10,000 that had recently arrived in the capital. And it was soon after Lord Tywine had arrived with the Westerlands army, considered by many to be the greatest army in Westeros ever since Lord Tywine became Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, that tragedy struck at the capital. King Aerys had died after falling down a staircase, breaking his neck as he fell, as witnessed by Queen Rolla and Sir Jaime Lannister of the Kingsguard. With the death of his father, whilst there was still a rebellion to fight, Roriger married Cersei Lannister in the Great September of Baelor, and he was crowned king, and his two wives Princess Elia and Lady Cersei were crowned his queens. In the Riverlands, the other traitorous armies surrounded Stony September, and with Robert Baratheon's army defeated Lord Jon Connington, in spite of the many casualties suffered due to Lord Connington's bravery and leadership in the battle. In spite of their costly victory, the rebels realized that they had very little chance of victory when they had heard of Aerys' death and Roriger's ascension to the Iron Throne. Good King Roriger began his reign with a great and honorable act of mercy. He sent a messenger to the rebel armies and told them that all would be pardoned if they would come to King's Landing. Seeing that there was no chance of victory, they did as was ordered by their king and marched for the capital, holding white flags as they did so. Merciful and wise King Roriger was good to his word and pardoned the rebellious lords, but sadly informed them of the death of his beloved lover, Lady Lyanna, whom died of a fever soon after giving birth to a stillborn daughter. Many lords welcomed the chance to return to the royal fold and gladly accepted King Roriger's pardon. In spite of returning the remains of those executed and issuing a levy tax on those whom committed treason as a light punishment for the treasons committed, some were not content with the generosity extended by King Roriger. Lord Eddard Stark, infuriated by the tragic death of his young sister and the unfortunate executions of his brother and father, unfairly blamed all on King Roriger, and he and his bannermen stormed from the Red Keep without even swearing an oath of fealty to the very man whom spared them from a death on the battlefield or from a just execution. With the war at an end, King Roriger had promised his subjects that in his reign, all would know a reign of peace and prosperity. But when he offered a place on the small council to Eddard Stark if he would just swear fealty, Eddard Stark uncouthly refused, choosing to return home to Winterfell with his wife, Lady Ashera of House Dane. In face of the taxes levied on those whom broke faith with House Targaryen, the houses of Arryn, Baratheon, Stark and Tully used different methods to pay these taxes for the next 5 and 10 years, as well as the houses that followed their liege lords and committed treason alongside them in the rebellion. Through the wisdom of the elderly, but capable Jon Arryn, House Arryn built 3 new mines in the Vale, producing a white stone, called marble, used specifically in palaces and castles in Essos. House Arryn and its bannermen have done well in recent years in reproving their loyalty and fealty to House Targaryen. Whilst Robert Baratheon was a notorious whoremongering drunk, the duties of Lord Paramountcy often fell to his hardened brother Stannis. And through Stannis, House Baratheon started doubling its merchant fleet and began trading wood and grain with various free cities for necessary coin. In spite of the just, but tragic execution of his treasonous eldest daughter Catelyn, Hoster Tully was far too angered and saddened by her death to be able to carry out the duties expected of a Lord Paramount. And so his duties fell to his brother, Sir Brynden Tully, otherwise known as the Blackfish, as well as teaching his nephew, Edmure Tully, his duties when he was to become Lord of Riverrun. In face of the taxes, House Tully doubled its production of fruits, grain, vegetables and wine. And as for House Stark, whilst Eddard Stark has committed no clear treasons against the Iron Throne since taking his father's place as Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, many of his actions can be considered to be unwise and most uncouth. But none can deny his accomplishments in building mines to produce minerals and materials that once lay in the hills and mountains of the north, undisturbed. He had built various new castles, towns and ports across the north and awarding them to his bannermen. But perhaps his most admirable accomplishment was building the Cailin Canal, allowing trading vessels to avoid sailing long voyages. But his unwise actions and insults towards the Iron Throne are many. Such as issuing a toll for all ships passing through, including ships bearing the colors of House Targaryen and the royal standard. And his unlawful annexation of the lands of the Gift, without royal command nor royal consent. But what I consider to be most shocking, was when His Grace had graciously sent a generous offer of help to build the Cailin Canal, knowing that this was costing the North resources and coin. But not only did he uncouthly refuse the offer of help and an offer of a royal betrothal between Crown Prince Jaehaerys and Eddard Stark's eldest daughter Lyanna, he insulted the king many times in his reply, which I remember very well as I was the one who read the letter out to the king in the small council. And it is for all of these insults to the crown and still refusing to see reason and swear fealty to his king, that his demands for help in a war against the wildlings beyond the wall were denied. His reasoning is indeed strange when soon after fighting said war with the wildlings, without royal consent, he permitted the wildlings to settle either in the north or build new homes in the lands beyond the wall, ports and castles built on the coasts by Eddard Stark, and awarding their lordships to wilderling commanders, again without royal consent. But whilst treasonous lords were troublesome in their own homes, there was trouble at home in the Red Keep for our good king. Less than 2 years after the king's marriage to Cersei Lannister, it was discovered that Queen Elia was having an affair with Sir Arthur Dayne of the Kingsguard. In spite of this clear betrayal, the king graciously exiled them rather than imprison them for the betrayal of his trust from his wife and a man he considered one of his best friends. King Rhaegar divorced Elia and, doubting the legitimacy of Rhaenys and Aegon due to the affair, realized that he couldn't possibly be their father, and so they were rightfully named as bastards. As for Arthur Dayne, he was banished to his boyhood home of Starfall and stripped of his status of the Kingsguard and his knighthood and his treasured name of Sword of the Morning. Even the ancestral star steel blade of House Dayne, Dawn, refuses to allow itself to be wielded by the disgraceful betrayer of the king's trust. In spite of all that has happened in the first years of his reign, King Rhaegar has done many great things for the realm with his treasured Queen Cersei Lannister at his side. Together they raised 3 beautiful children, Crown Prince Jaehaerys, Princess Maegil and Prince Tyrius. Chapter 18, it begins. Chapter text. Eddard 11. How is she, Maester Jellimund? Asked Eddard. She is well, my lord. I must say, giving birth to this many children is a very rare feat. But, regardless, she will be well. Just as long as she has plenty of rest and water and healthy food, he said. Ash told me when she first met that she dreamt of having 10 children. We have 6 now, Eddard thought. Eddard ran inside their chambers and sat beside Ash, who lay exhausted from the ordeal. Ash, he said, running his fingers through her long, silky and beautiful hair with one hand whilst he held her hand with his other. Ned. Where is my sweet little girl? She asked. Eddard brought her to Ash, and both gently kissed her tiny head whilst Ash lovingly held her in her arms. What has Maester Jellimund said? Asked Ash. That she is healthy and that you are healthy, he said. Ash breathed a sigh of relief before stroking Eddard's face and kissing him hard. Ash let go of him before holding up their newly born sons. Are you all right, Ash? Eddard asked. I am. I have 6 beautiful children and a loving husband who's recently returned home from war. What could I possibly have to complain about? She asked. I know. It's just that I know you wanted 10 children when we first met, Eddard pointed out. I did. And I still do. But, we can keep trying, said Ash with a mischievous glint in her eyes. What will we call her? Asked Eddard as he looked at her. Like her mother and father, she had pure black hair, but she also had dark blue eyes. Blue eyes and violet eyes had been commonly shared between Eddard and Ash's children. Prydain, Halric, Elyanna and Deanna had violet eyes. Whereas Artos and now this little girl had dark blue eyes. We'll name her Serena, said Eddard, as he beamed, staring at his beautiful daughter fast asleep. Serena. Such a beautiful name for a beautiful little girl, said Ash before she kissed Serena's head again. I wish that father and mother could have been here. They'd have loved all of their beautiful grandchildren. Brandon and Lyanna, too. They'd have loved their nephews and nieces. And I pray that they all would approve of what it is I plan now that the War of the Long Night is over and the free folk are established in the north and beyond the wall and the threat of the undead is long gone. Don't tell me that you are planning to go to war with Rhaegar now. It's only been 6 moons ever since the war ended and the free folk, as you call them, have just started to settle around the north and build new homes in the north and beyond the wall. We've still to heal what was lost from the undead, said Ash. How did you know I was thinking that? Asked Eddard. I know you too well, my love. I always have, she said with a beaming smile as she stroked her hand over his face. I am thinking of it. But not yet, of course. We wait another half year, once all have settled down. And then, we shall claim our freedom and cast off the shackles of the Iron Throne, said Eddard. Are the armies of the North ready? Asked Ash. Aye. The war against the free folk and then against the undead have only hardened our resolve. And all those who thought we should give the South a second chance, think differently, said Eddard. They support Northern independence? Asked Ash. Aye. No Southerner came to our aid in spite of the ravens I sent to Rhaegar for help, said Eddard. Eddard looked to the door as it opened and he saw their children all clamber inside. Do we have a new sibling? Deanna asked excitedly. Yes, Deanna, "Meet your new sister," said Ash as Prydain, Halric, Eliana, Artos and Deanna entered. They all climbed onto the bed to meet their new sister. "What is her name, mother?" asked Eliana when Prydain picked up Serena and Deanna started holding her favorite doll above Serena's head, until she realized that she was sleeping. "Her name is Serena," Ash explained as Prydain, Eliana, Artos, Halric and Deanna all were taking turns to hold her. Eddard beamed with pride as he saw his children meet their new sister. "Soon, very soon, our dreams will come true and the North will be free of these southern cunts and we will be a free people and a free country as we always should been. The North was never meant to bow down to the fucking dragons and their lickspittles. Come now, everyone. You should let your mother and your sister rest. It's been a hard day for your mother and your sister needs to rest and feed," said Eddard. "But, father, Serena is so beautiful," complained Deanna, not wanting to stop hugging her sister. I know she is. But you must all be studying and letting your mother recover. You'll have the chance to play with Serena later," said Eddard. As they left, Eddard decided that now was the time to send a raven to Braavos, the last known location of the Company of the Rose. It's been nearly 300 years since their ancestors had refused to bow to Targaryen tyranny. Now the time has come for them to return home and, together, we will smash the Targaryen armies and free the North from southern tyranny forever. "Jon X. Is Grand Maester Pycelle not here?" asked Sir Kevan. "No, Sir Kevan. But, it matters not. I am sure we can continue without him," said Jon. "Yes. Now that winter is over and summer begins, how much of a harvest can be produced in the Crown Lands?" asked Rhaegar. "Your Grace, in the last few weeks of winter, the small folk began to prepare what they could to prevent wasting time beginning preparations during the summer," said Sir Kevan. "Excellent. So, we have nothing to be concerned about with the harvests we can gather across the realm?" asked Jon. "No, Lord Hand. My sources tell me that within the next moon, the fields shall be tilled and ready for sowing seeds and growing crops. Thanks to the doubled taxes from the king's treasonous subjects, we have had plenty of food this winter and fewer deaths amongst the small folk. Meaning that there are still plenty of small folk to grow and prepare the food," Sir Kevan explained. "Excellent work, Sir Kevan. And how is the treasury looking?" asked Rhaegar. "At present, Your Grace, there is an approximate total of 12 million gold dragons in the royal treasury," Sir Kevan replied, looking up after reading from his ledger. "Well then, with this, I think we can be glad of the policy of the treasonous subjects from the doubled taxes now that the designated 5 and 10-year period is 6 years from finishing," said Richard. "Indeed, the doubled tax system on the traitors has worked wonders. But, it won't last forever. We cannot be forever reliant on them paying double taxes. It has helped in ensuring the realm's survival during this hard winter, Lord Lunmouth. However, once the 5 and 10-year period is over, the treasury will be back to normal with the usual amount of taxes," said Lord Varys. "Then we can keep it on the Northerners until they have sworn fealty to His Grace," suggested Miles. "A brilliant idea. Now why didn't I think of that before?" Before any could continue with Miles' idea, the doors opened and Grand Maester Pycelle came running inside, breathless, and holding a letter. "Your Grace. I came as soon as I received this letter. You must read it," he said. "What the fuck? I've never seen him like this." Jon stood up and took the letter from Pycelle whilst he sat down and drank greedily from 2 cups of water. Ignoring Pycelle's loud slurping, Jon turned to Rhaegar. "What does it say, Jon?" asked Rhaegar. Jon opened the letter and began to read aloud. "To the inbred tyrant lizard that calls himself a king. The North now declares its independence from the cruelty you have made us endure for what has been nearly 10 years. Before you became king, it was because of your fucking selfishness and lust that you tricked and lured my sister. My father, brother, sister and good sister would still be alive had it not been for your fucking short-sightedness and stupidity, as would hundreds of Northerners. But no more. Never again will a Stark or a Northerner bow to the fucking tyranny of you so-called dragons. From this day forth, we answer not to you, to the Iron Throne or to any fucking Southerner. We answer only to ourselves, to the North and to the gods. We want only peace, but if you come with every army in the world, we will still fight you and bleed you fucking dry and see if you Targaryens are truly gods as your doctrine of exceptionalism says, or if you are but maggots to be crushed underneath northern boots." The last time we met, I told you that the North remembers and that winter is coming. Now it has. Signed. Eddard of the House Stark, first of his name, Lord of Winterfell and King in the North. Jon couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe the audacity of Eddard Stark to say such insults, nor that he had any chance of success of being king in the North. What the fuck is Eddard Stark doing? Doesn't he know that we will march to the north with the armies of the south and crush his pathetic excuse of a rebellion? Combining the armies of the kingdoms, we would outnumber the northerners 5-1. Their numbers can't be more than 25,000. The shocked silence in the small council was broken by Richard when he started laughing. What the fuck is he doing? Has the winter made him lose his senses? He asked. Probably. It's cold in winters here, but the Seven only know how cold it is in the northern winters. Grand Maester Pycelle, said Rhaegar. The Grand Maester obediently turned to Rhaegar. Send ravens to all corners of the realm. We march on the north and end this rebellion and end Eddard Stark, said Rhaegar. At last. At last we shall end his treasons and insults towards his king. Has defeating a few bands of troublesome wildlings made him think he is Aegon the Conqueror reborn? What shall become of the North once the war is over, your grace? Whom shall be Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North? Asked Lord Commander Hightower while Pycelle left for his chambers to send the ravens. Eddard Stark will die and his sons will be sent off to either the Night's Watch or to the Citadel. His eldest daughter Lyanna will marry Tyrese and together they will rule the North when Tyrese comes of age, said Rhaegar. Will Cersei agree to this? Yes, Tyrese will rule a great and expansive kingdom, but will she agree to letting him rule somewhere so cold and barren as the North? I have been patient with Eddard Stark and gave him every opportunity to swear fealty and to right the wrongs he and his house committed, and yet even now, he dooms his family, his people and the North with a war he should know that he cannot win. The realm is doomed if the North is not part of the royal fold and we are all united and stand together, said Rhaegar. Yes, the realm must be united. To face what Rhaegar fears most, the threat of the undead beyond the wall. Even if by some incredible luck that Eddard Stark is victorious, he will be all alone when the true threat comes and the great peril dawns on the North. Ashura 11. I don't want to see you go to war again, said Ashura as she hugged Ned tightly in their bedchambers. I must. They've shown no interest in granting the North its independence. Now we must fight for it, said Ned before he gently kissed Ashura's lips. Were it still the winter, they'd freeze before they could ever fight us, said Ashura. But, the free folk and the undead interrupted us before we could, Ned pointed out. Just promise me, Ned. Promise me that you will be careful. Don't trust in them having honor. You've seen how most, if not all, Southerners care more for coin, power and influence rather than honor. By all means, treat them with honor once you've defeated them, but do not trust they will have honor before you fight them, Ashura begged of him. I've seen enough of the Red Keep in the days of Aerys and his court and heard plenty of Rhaegar's court to know that honor is possessed only by the Kingsguard. I promise, Ash. I'll not waste away on the battlefield and I will come back, for you and for our family, said Ned before he held her face with both hands and kissed her passionately. I love you so much, he said. And I love so much, she whispered before hugging him again. Ashura cried watching Ned leave, just like she had felt when she saw Ned leave to march for Last Hearth to lead the armies of the North to Castle Black. Ned had told her everything about the undead he had fought beyond the wall. The Whites, the White Walkers and the Night King, and how Ned slew him at the Battle of Frostfangs. Ashura knew very well of the monsters beyond the wall. Being Elya's lady-in-waiting, she had heard Rhaegar ranting about them to Elya, Jon Connington, Richard Lunmouth and Miles Mouton, Oswell Went and Arthur. And she had glanced at some of the writings he had left in his and Elya's chambers in the stone drum of Dragonstone. Finally she had seen the images and sketches in a few of these writings, depicting said monsters. So, after numerous letters sent to King's Landing asking for help against that which scared Rhaegar the most, and was his primary motive behind all of his actions, Ashura was the most surprised when their letters to King's Landing had been met with silence. He's spent his whole life trying to warn us all of these monsters, and in our hour of need, he didn't come at all. Is it any wonder that we are now fighting for our freedom, when they would never have come to help us? In the courtyard, Ashura hugged and kissed Ned one last time before he hugged and kissed Prydain, Halric, Lyanna, Artos, Deanna and Serena goodbye. After seeing him leave, Ashura walked to Ned Solar and found the 2 crowns on his desk. "Not until the war is won, and then we will have the coronation here," said Ned soon after sending the letter to King's Landing. And now, with the arrival of the Company of the Rose, led by Commander Hotar Umber, the Army of the North was ready for war. Combining the armies of the North, the Free Folk and the Company, Ned marched to Moat Cailin with an army of 50,000 Northerners. Ashura held court as usual in Winterfell. Of course many were still celebrating the declaration of Northern independence, from small folk to nobles. But, as she was now queen in the North, Ashura met with people and heard their problems in the Great Hall as often as she could. And when she wasn't, she would spend time with her children. Only Prydain, Halric and Elionor understood where their father was and what he was doing. But Precious Artos and Deanna didn't understand what their father was doing, were constantly asking Ashura where he was and why wasn't he back home. "He will be back home soon, I promise, my love. We must just hope for him to return and for us to pray to the old gods," she once told Artos. Before going to bed each night, Ashura took her children to the heart tree in the Godswood. Ashura smiled as she watched them sit in silence before the carved faces of the old gods in the weirwood trees and heart trees. "Gods of old, gods of trees, stones, rivers and snow, I pray that you will keep Ned and all Northerners safe as they march to fight for our freedom and to save the North from Rhaegar Targaryen, his tyranny, and the Southerners trying to enforce their cultures and religion on my children and my people." Chapter 19, On Land and on Sea. Chapter Text. Interlude V, The Rogue's Guide to Shakespeare on Film. #11, Henry V, 1989, The Drunken Odyssey. Young Mace Tyrell, Kenneth Branagh. Glory. Glory for me and for House Tyrell, that is what we shall earn when it is I leading the Reach army to victory against the foolish rebel, Eddard Stark. Mace Tyrell's head was full of grand glories and earning a position on the small council for being the one to defeat Eddard Stark in battle. And possibly even a royal marriage, between Margaery and Crown Prince Jaehaerys. Rather than march his army to join with the royal army forming in the Crown Lands, Mace marched the army of the Reach towards the north without delay. He had sent a raven to the king that he felt it imperative that they strike the Northerners before they could make any more preparations to defend the north. And it will be the great Reach army that defeats Eddard Stark. And finally, once the war is won, Mother will finally stop mocking me in front of Aeleri, our children, and worst of all, my bannermen. The scowls from Randall and Mathis are hard enough to endure without Mother admonishing me, but in all fairness, they scowl at everyone, even at their own children. Those poor children of theirs, I do hope that when their heirs grow up and inherit their respective fathers' seats, that they won't be like that to their own children. No child should be treated as such by their father, otherwise how can they be good and fair to their own subjects if they are not fair to their own family? Mace sat on his horse, looking on with pride on a hill as he watched the infantry of the Reach march on the King's Road, having just marched into the Neck, though they saw no point in capturing Greywater Watch, for it was little more than a holding of Crannog men whom were no match for the great army of House Tyrell and the Reach. The finest army of the Seven Kingdoms, contrary to what Tywin Lannister may think. My victory here in the north will change all opinions. Tywin Lannister is many things, but a soldier is not one of them. He never even fought in the rebellion, not like I had at Ashford, and then I had started to besiege Storm's End. My lord, said Sir Baelor Hightower, Mace's good brother, who had just rode beside him. Baelor, please. We are brothers by marriage, we need not use such formalities when we are alone, Mace said with a cheerful smile as they looked down from the hill at the great Reach army. Well, Mace, there is news. Important news. A few of our scouting parties have just come back, all telling the same story, said Baelor. Same story. Does Eddard Stark prepare to fight us? The Northern Army, asked Mace keenly. Yes. They counted a little more than 40,000 men, he explained. 40,000 not a problem. We number 65,000 men. Wait a minute. 40,000. I thought that their numbers were 20,000 in Robert's rebellion. How have their numbers doubled? Could they have hired sellswords from Essos? Are they joined by their rebellious and treasonous friends from the Riverlands and the Vale? Oh, no matter, we will crush them no matter what. How do their men look, did they say? Asked Mace. Optimistic, was the word they used. They seemed very eager to get to grips with us, said Baelor. And I'm very eager to get to grips with these traitors. How far away? Mace asked. 2 leagues. But the northern army are all waiting for us, fresh and ready, the scouts said. Baylor pointed out. Mace frowned. Damn, that's not good. That will be a problem. Whilst the Reach army is undoubtedly the best in Westeros, the men have been marching for half a day now. They need rest if we are to achieve the victory to end this war. What are your orders, my lord? Asked Baylor as the other bannermen started riding to join them, Denys Caswell, Randall Tarley, Mathis Rowan, Alistair Florent and Elwood Meadows. We need the men to rest for an hour before we fight. We may have the advantage in numbers, equipment and training, but I will not let the Northerners have the advantage over us because our men were too exhausted or hungry, my lord, said Mace. It's this climate, my lord. The men aren't used to it and they'll need plenty of food to warm themselves up before they fight, Randall advised. True. Gods, how do the Northerners live up here and still call this wretched place home? Do we have enough food? Elwood asked. Come now, Elwood, surely you know me better than that. Of course there is plenty of food. I would never let my men go hungry in war. More than enough, Lord Meadows, Mathis said sternly. Randall, please halt the march and have the men rest and eat before we fight, said Mace. Yes, my lord, he replied gruffly before commanding a halt. And as a reward for this victory and spearheading into the north, perhaps as well as a position on the small council, the king may agree to a betrothal between my beloved Margaery and Crown Prince Jaehaerys. Mother always said that there should be a Tyrell queen. And so there shall be. It will be Margaery. They are both of similar age and Margaery is doing very well in her lessons with Mother, Aeleri and Septa Vice. She will make a very brilliant queen when she is old enough. But before a halt could be ordered, a loud and foreboding war horn could be heard from afar. Mace didn't recognize the horn, it sounded like none of the Reach. And so he could draw only one conclusion. The Northerners. They are marching on us. But, why do they march on us? They are in the minority and they leave good positions to confront us. Get into defensive positions. Positions, men. Come on. The Starks out there are men of ice and iron and will not hesitate to cut you down as offerings to their old gods. Mace shouted at them. Mace turned to his squire, his own son Garlan. My sword, Garlan, he said. Yes, father, said Garlan. Garlan passed him his sword and Mace drew it and wielded it around to get a feel for it. This is it. Ashford was a glorious victory, true enough, but I wasn't there for long enough, for Robert Baratheon had fled before I could have delivered the killing blow to his army. But it will be this victory that will ensure my name is recorded with honors in the history of House Tyrell and the Seven Kingdoms, and I will be remembered as the man who delivered the crushing blow to the northern rebels. Are you ready for glory, my boy? Mace asked, proud of his second son. Yes, I am, father, said Garlan with an eager smile. Stick close to me then, Garlan. And once this over, if I see you've shown great bravery, I will talk to the king himself for him to knight you, said Mace before patting him on the shoulder. Garlan's face flushed red with eagerness at the thought of being knighted by the king. Garlan and Loras will become great knights one day. Willer's injury from that accursed and treacherous serpent of a Martell cost him the chance of becoming a great knight that will be recorded and remembered in the histories they will write of House Tyrell. He may be happy with his books and animals, but I will never forgive Oberyn Martell for what he did to my son. More fool he and all of Dorne for not joining our armies against the northern rebels. Elia Martell shouldn't have been a wanton harlot to the king if she wanted a son whom would inherit the Iron Throne. And to think I had once approached King Aerys on a marriage offer between Willers and Rhaenys Waters, back when she was still a Targaryen. Mace watched the northern army march into position. A long line of spearmen at the front and archers at the back with dense woods to their flanks. But instead of halting and preparing to defend themselves, they were still marching at a slow pace, straight towards Mace and his army. What are they doing? Baylor wondered as he drew his sword. Do they intend to trick us? Alistair suggested as he squinted his eyes at them. What are your orders, my lord? Asked Mathis. Mace pointed his sword at the center of the army, where he could see the direwolf banner of House Stark, and directly underneath, he could see Eddard Stark. Mace never forgot a face. And he remembered Eddard Stark well from when he insulted the king in the Red Keep all those years ago. Back then, Mace pitied the man. He was not even 20 and he had lost his father, brother, sister and good sister and found himself burdened with the duty of being a lord paramount when he had never been raised to be his father's heir. But Mace felt that Eddard Stark had gone too far in insulting King Rhaegar, especially when he had apologized for the deaths. Order the men to attack. We end this rebellion today, at the end of the lances and swords of the brave men of the Reach. Mace ordered. The bannermen replied yes, my lord, and rode out to carry out their orders whilst Mace rode to the front with Garlan riding by his side. Remember what I said, Garlan. Keep close to my side and remember your training, said Mace. Yes, father, said Garlan before Mace swiveled his horse to face the great Reach army. For the Reach and for the king. Attack. Crush these northern rebels and send them to the deepest and darkest pits of the seven hells. Mace called out to the men. The men clanged their swords against their shields and began to chant Tyrell. 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 Mace's face flushed with pride at hearing them chant his house's name in such a way. Mace rode alongside 500 knights of Highgarden in front of the infantry. Mace didn't have lance, he didn't need one. He would bloody his sword with many northern dead this day. But then, the northerners halted their march at the sound of another of their horns as Mace looked amongst their banners. He recognized the roaring and chain-breaking giant of House Umber, the bone-chilling flayed man of House Bolton, the beaming winter son of House Carstark, the criss-crossed axes of House Dustin, the neighing dark horse of House Ryswell, the black battle axe of House Sewin, the mailed fist of House Glover, the bull moose of House Hornwood, the three sentinel trees of House Tallheart, the growling black bear of House Mormont and of course the grey and snarling direwolf of House Stark. Though there were many new sigils that Mace didn't recognize. And as soon as the horn's blare finished, Mace looked above when he thought that the sunshine had darkened. Mace looked up and gulped when he realized what had caused the sunlight to disappear. Clouds of arrows and javelins. Mace halted his knights as 2 arrows struck into his shield. He felt disheartened as he heard the screams and cries of his brave men behind him. No. Not my men. He ordered for his cavalry to halt when he realized that the northerners had formed an enormous spear wall. Not even the knights of the Reach can smash their way through a wall of spears such as that. But the infantry still charged, brave men to the last, Mace knew for a fact. They charged into spears, but whilst many broke through the shields of their spearmen, Mace watched in horror as thousands of northern infantry started appearing on the flanks from the trees, all wielding enormous swords, axes, maces and hammers as they began crushing their way through the men of the Reach, whom were ill prepared to face such savages. Mace was shocked at seeing the flankers, many of whom were dressed in bronze lamella or furs and the biggest of them all had scars carved into their faces. Gods, no, Mace thought when he saw an enormous northern warrior wearing bronze lamella armor carved with runes on the scales, and with scars carved all over his bald head as he sliced through soldiers and knights. Mace couldn't believe it when this massive warrior, wielding an equally massive axe, cut down brave Sir Aris Oakurt from his horse and beheaded him. The man who slew brave Sir Aris laughed and roared as he lifted his blooded and enormous axe up high before he chopped it down onto another knight. What have I done? I've led us into a trap. Mace rode to rejoin the cavalry with his knights and he could see his bannermen amongst them. My lord, we cannot break through the spear walls head-on, but we can attack the northerners flanking our men, said Randil. Give the order. They may have surprised us now, but I will not suffer defeat this day, my lord, said Mace keenly. Mace looked around and saw where the northerners were flanking them from, wooded areas. Send our men to attack through those trees, said Mace, pointing there with his sword, whilst Garlan nervously stayed by his father's side. We cannot, my lord, said Mathis. What? Are you disobeying my orders, Mathis? Mace demanded, his blood hot from the battle and seeing his men die. My lord, I saw over a dozen knights try to attack them through there, and they were stuck in a marshy bog before being filled full of arrows, Mathis explained. A bog. Damn it all. Mace realized something when he looked amongst his senior bannermen. Wait, where is Lord Caswell? He asked. He's dead, my lord. Some bushy-bearded and red-haired northerner speared his horse and killed him, said Mathis. Poor Lord Caswell. He was a good man and a good lord of his people and he deserved better than this. A horn could be heard, from behind them. Mace recognized that horn as the Northern Horn, which he knew meant something bad as he turned around. he was right. By the warrior, what have I done? He could see thousands of Northern cavalry charging towards them, underneath the banners of House Bolton, House Riswell, House Tallheart, House Glover and House Carstark. Mace realized his earlier assumption was true as he watched as the reserves were being slaughtered by the flanking Northern cavalry. The king in the north, they chanted before they rode straight into his men with lances, spears and swords. I have marched us straight into a trap. Sound the retreat. We cannot win here. Mace ordered. Yes, my lord, said Randil, who blew a horn from his saddle. Retreat. Come on, lads. Get out of here. We'll have our revenge soon enough on these bastard Northern savages. Randil called. As Mace rode on his horse and looked behind at the thousands of dead and wounded reachmen laying on the fields of Greywater, he felt his heart sink to see such a sight. Gods, forgive me for the good reachmen I have sent to their deaths today. Lords of House Tyrell, noble ancestors, forgive my rashness. I have brought shame and disgrace to House Tyrell today. But as Randil Tarly had said, we will have our revenge. I swear it. Interlude 6, Meta, another round of face claims. R/Iron Throne powers. Willis Mandaily, Brian blessed. Finally, a chance for battle and glory, Willis thought as he peered through his mirrorish spyglass at the surrounding waters. My lord, Sir Wendell, Lady Mage and Sir Wilbert are coming aboard for orders, called Willis' first mate, Sir Hakan Moller. Good. Let's plan our battle with the Southerners. Signal the all-seeing eye to scout ahead for the enemy, Sir Hakan, said Willis. Aye, my lord, nodded Sir Hakan. Willis Mandaily was the eldest son of Lord Wyman of House Mandaily and Lord of White Harbour, Warden of the White Knife and Lord Marshal of the Mandaya. House Mandaily was the wealthiest and one of the most powerful houses of the north and was the most prominent that worshipped the seven as opposed to the old gods as the rest of their fellow northern houses worshipped. Sir Willis was no different and neither was his brother Sir Wendell. For their house, a wealthy one for trade and for White Harbour was the main trading port of the north, was once of the Reach and they called their home the Castle of Dunstanbury before their forced exile by the kings of the Reach, the Gardeners, because of dishonourable intrigues from their long-time rivals, House Peak of Starpike, and jealousy from the power and wealth of House Mandaily. House Stark welcomed them to the north and gifted them lands, and House Mandaily swore fealty to the kings in the north. Willis was eager for battle and the chance to fight at sea. Whilst Wendell was the ever-eager warrior and the most skilled as a knight out of the two brothers, Willis was the better sailor and leader. Once the war is over, I can't wait to tell Winifred and Wyler about us taking on the great fleets of the south. And maybe we can break the colossal armada of the great red wines of the Ubber. Yes, that will be quite the song to be sung in White Harbour for centuries to come and to be recorded in House Mandaily's history. Willis' thoughts of glory and impressing his little girls were interrupted when he saw his younger brother, Lady Mage of House Mormont, and Willis' good brother, Sir Wilbert Woolfield, climbing on board. After greeting each of them and having tankards of Carhold bronze brought to them, they began to plan the battle. What do we know of the enemy, brother? Wendell asked as he sipped from his tankard. Well, when the enemy come, they will attack in a spearhead formation. Our fishermen spies in the Three Sisters have sent ravens telling us of their position, and that they are commanded by Lord Lucerys of House Valerian, Roriger's master of ships and the so-called Lord of the Tides, said Willis as he pointed at his map of the surrounding waters, laying on a barrel. This Valerian. What do we know about him, Sir Willis? Is he a good sailor? Asked Wilbert. Aye, but the stories that say as such, also say that he is no leader, and from what I've heard from my contacts in King's Landing and Driftmark, he thinks us all as barbarians and savages who'll run from the first sign of battle. Which gives us the advantage that they will underestimate us, Willis pointed out. Well, I look forward to proving them wrong, said Lady Mage as she cracked her knuckles before resting one hand on her large, gnarled and ugly mace, soon after quickly downing the contents of her tankard. Prove them wrong you will, Lady Mage, to their misfortune as they meet their ends from your fists or your mace. So, what is the plan? Asked Wendell. There is a far-stretching sheet of ice on the water just below the cliffs of Oldcastle. We shall lure them with some bait there. Even better, the ice is obscured by a strong mist. So, whilst the southern vanguard rush headlong into the ice, we flank them on all sides, said Willis, pointing at where on the map. Mage laughed at his plan. Sneaky. Sneaky. I like it, Sir Willis. But who will be the bait, said the she-bear of Bear Island. I will, my lady, said Wendell with an eager grin. Good luck, brother. But remember, once they start firing at you, that's when you retreat. Let them come after you and let them smash futilely into the ice, Willis reminded him. I will, don't worry, brother. And the waters here shall litter with sunken southern ships and their sailors, said Wendell eagerly. Madge, shouted I, as she pounded her chest proudly at that before patting both Willis and Wendell on the back. My lord. A signal from the all-seeing eye. They are coming, shouted Sir Hakon from the forecastle. To your ships, my lords, my lady. And let us to battle, said Willis, his heart pounding as he felt the sweat swim down his head.